So, I got sucked into a novel where everyone's future is decided by the god they serve. Naturally, I picked the most useless, forgotten goddess of them all. No one else knew she was secretly the actual, true goddess of fortune. See, in this crazy world, every adult gets exactly one shot to toss an offering into a divine well and pray they get accepted into a faction. Most people stay at rank 0 forever. A lucky few hit rank 1, rank 2 is mythical, and rank 5 is the absolute peak. Now watch this, while every wealthy candidate lined up to worship Orion Drake, that famous god of fortune, I bypassed his glittering golden statue to search for a forgotten goddess who had no followers, no priests, and not even a decent shrine. The crowd laughed their heads off when they saw my choice, Aelia, of the first step. To them, she was a nursery goddess, meant only for toddlers and beginners. She was for people too pathetic to catch a real god's eye. But I remembered one golden line from the original novel that nobody here understood. Gold is never true fortune, it is just what is left behind once fortune departs. When I first woke up as Dorian West, I did not feel like some legendary hero. I felt like I had lost a brutal fight with a hardwood floor. My face was literally glued to cold floorboards, and my mouth tasted like stale instant ramen and blood. I was clutching a shattered smartphone with a glowing notification staring back at me: registration for the faction trial, only 3 days left. Below that was my balance, $1,800. I actually transmigrated for this? My grand starting equipment consisted of a massive headache, a dying phone, and enough cash for a cheap, depressing lunch. Just beautiful. I struggled to stand, almost knocking over a pile of unpaid bills. Eviction notices, utility warnings, academy alerts. Every single paper had the exact same name stamped on them: Dorian West. 18. Unbound, no faction, no family sponsors, and no active divine mark to his name. Around here, that is not just embarrassing, it is a straight-up social death sentence. Then, the memories hit in painful waves. My past life, his memories, and the entire novel's plot got blended together inside my skull like a broken hard drive. I remembered dying, reading the web novel, every single corner of this massive city. But I also remembered that Dorian was not the main character. That title belonged to Carter Blaine, the golden boy, destined to kneel before the god of fortune, claiming an overpowered blessing from the famous god of fortune, launching him to absolute stardom, while every rich family in America fought to sponsor him. Seriously, how incredibly inspiring. Too bad I was not him. I was just a broke idiot 3 days from the trial, with $18 and a body surviving on vending machine snacks and awful life choices. I crawled to the mirror. The reflection staring back had exhausted gray eyes, messy dark hair, and one seriously bruised jaw. He had the haunted look of a guy who realized rent was due in 2 different worlds. Touching the cut on my lip, I winced. Turns out, the original Dorian collapsed after getting shoved into the dirt outside a trial prep center last night. No poison, no murder, he was just humiliated so brutally that his soul checked out and handed me the steering wheel. Rude, honestly. My phone buzzed again: mandatory candidate orientation at the main cathedral. Attendance is mandatory for all unclaimed adults. Here we go, my first step toward greatness, or a lifetime of being treated like garbage. This place sat right in the middle of downtown, looking like a bank and a temple had a massive golden baby. Huge marble pillars, towering glass, and security drones buzzing above the entrance. A gigantic statue of Orion Drake towered over the plaza, clutching a golden coin in his hand, while his other hand gripped a contract book. Super subtle. Hundreds of eager candidates crowded the plaza. Rich kids strutted in tailored suits carrying velvet boxes, family priests trailing behind them like divine customer service reps, whispering last-minute cheat codes. And then, there was me. Cheap shoes, faded jacket, no sponsor badge, and an offering pouch so light it was basically decorative. Over by the stairs, a mother desperately clutched a silver bracelet while her nervous son stepped under the scanner. He looked to be exactly my age. His face was ghostly pale, lips locked tight, fighting to hold back tears. A stone-faced clerk grabbed the bracelet, tossed it onto a golden tray, and lowered it deep into the offering well. It glowed for half a second, then went completely cold. The overhead scanner chimed rank 0. That poor mother let out a quiet, strangled sob, a sound that still haunts me to this day, like her chest had caved in. The clerk did not even blink, calling out for the next candidate while 2 guards dragged the boy away. He did not fight back. Fighting would only make things worse. In this crazy world, getting ignored by a god is brutal, but making a scene afterward is just straight-up social suicide. That was the very first lesson I learned from Dorian West's memories. The gods do not need to reject you out loud. Cold silence is more than enough. Inside the cathedral, the air smelled of heavy incense, expensive perfume, and pure desperation. 7 massive halls branched out from the central atrium, with each one dedicated to a powerful major faction. The Golden Dominion's hall was easily the largest, boasting lines so massive they wrapped right around a fountain shaped like falling coins. Other halls were dedicated to healing, war, law, storm, and even death. Yet everyone kept staring at Orion's golden doors, because fortune meant money, contracts, luxury housing, and basically a much better life. Well, at least that was what they all believed. I kept moving with the unclaimed candidates toward the registration desk. Giant screens listed various trial slots, recommended offering tiers, acceptance stats, and the most recent blessing results. Just last week, a sponsored candidate scored a rank 2 blessing after offering up a family deed, corporate shares, and a blessed gold relic. The crowd treated it like an absolute miracle. I looked at my $1,842. Yeah, I definitely needed a different strategy. Suddenly, a voice called out from behind me, so smug it made my eye twitch. I turned to see Blake Harrington. I recognized him from Dorian's Memories and the original novel. Rich family, Golden Dominion loyalist, hair styled like he tipped his barber with blood diamonds. Wearing a smile sharp enough to slice through bone, he sneered at my worn-out shoes and the cracked phone in my hand. Blake laughed, saying he thought I dropped out after last night. And there it was. My bruised face, cheap clothes, and lack of a sponsor badge gave me away. Rich kids can smell poverty from miles away. It is basically like echolocation for spotting people they want to crush. I gave him a tired smile. Suffering builds character, right? At least, that is what I am advertising. Behind him, his massive friend Trent Bishop snorted in amusement. Trent was bigger, louder, and looked like a guy who struggled with basic doorknobs. Meanwhile, Blake's eyes drifted to my empty offering pouch. Blake asked if I was really registering, with what loose change and a heartfelt apology. A few candidates nearby chuckled. I tried to think of a witty comeback, but then my stomach growled. Absolutely perfect timing. Trent roared with laughter, mocking me because even my organs were begging. I just stared back, telling him at least one part of me has ambition. That got some chuckles. It was not exactly a win, but trust me, we take what we can get here. Blake proudly lifted a polished black case. Inside, resting under glass, was a small golden scale engraved with Orion Drake's holy symbol. My family prepared a real, proper offering, he bragged. It was a certified, blessed prosperity relic from a Golden Dominion auction, and he paused so everyone could see it. He claimed that some of them actually took their futures seriously. I looked at his relic, then at the other rich candidates. They held boxes of gold, silver, and property deeds basically, inherited wealth masquerading as religious devotion. In that moment, the brutal truth of this world became incredibly clear. The poor sacrifice, while the rich simply trade inventory. And yet, everyone called it faith. Suddenly, a clear bell echoed through the entire atrium. A priest in a gold-trimmed coat stepped onto a platform beneath Orion's statue, his voice echoing smoothly through the speakers. He announced that the candidates stood before the divine order, where their offering was proof and their prayer was a request. Your chosen God is your entire future, he said, gesturing to the golden hall. Choose wisely, because a strong faction will lift you up. But a weak faction will bury you. The crowd murmured, and the priest smoothly continued his speech. Once accepted, your faction mark binds you. No candidate can serve two gods or change patrons without official release, severance, or death. He said that last word so calmly it made my skin crawl. One god, one single shot, one future. That was the rule. And because of that, you see everyone desperately rushing toward the exact same famous gods. The popular gods had endless followers, offerings, and recognition, with their names literally written into law, finance, and war. Meanwhile, the forgotten gods had nothing, leaving people to believe they were weak, simply because they were useless. But I suspected a different truth. Maybe they were only weak because everyone had stopped feeding them. A massive screen near the altar suddenly flashed with tomorrow's featured candidate profiles, showing sponsor tags and predicted faction matches. One name immediately caught my eye, Carter Blaine. He had no rank or blessing yet, just a profile photo and a note recommending him for Golden Dominion Review, the novel's golden boy before he actually got the gold. For one brief, stupid second, I seriously considered copying him. Why not? I knew the entire future. I knew Orion's faction would completely dominate the early arcs. They had money, status, total protection, and enough smug confidence to power a whole city. Then I looked at Blake's relic, then at the rejected boy sitting by the exit, his mother's empty hands shaking around absolutely nothing. I looked down at my own pouch. Empty. Orion Drake had thousands of candidates lining up today. Rich kids, sponsored elites. If I prayed to him, I'd just be another broke idiot throwing pocket change into a well already completely drowning in diamonds. Absolute hard pass. The orientation wrapped up and candidates immediately rushed toward their chosen halls. Blake strolled past with Trent at his shoulder, both of them heading straight for Orion's golden doors. Blake glanced back, telling me to try not to embarrass myself too badly because some gods really hate cheap offerings. I shot back that it was a good thing I wasn't shopping for a god with expensive taste. He laughed, thinking I was coping. Honestly, I totally was. I was coping professionally, but my feet were already turning away from the Golden Hall. Dorian West's memories told me the old church registry was hidden on the second floor where candidates could search minor shrines. Things like retired divinities, household gods, and other divine leftovers no one with a decent sponsor would touch. The place was practically empty. An old clerk sat behind a glass divider, half asleep beside a terminal. He looked up as I approached, saw my lack of sponsor badge, and instantly looked bored again. "Minor registry?" he asked. When I said the old registry, it actually made him pause. His eyes flicked over me again. Cheap clothes, bruised face, no relic case, no family priest, and absolutely no reason to ask dangerous questions. "Old registry requires candidate authorization," he muttered. In response, I held up my phone showing the orientation pass. "Unclaimed adult trial in 3 days," he sighed, looking like I had personally ruined his afternoon. He asked for my search terms. My mouth went dry. This was the moment, guys, our first real step off the exact path the novel wanted me to follow. I could still turn around, go downstairs, stand in Orion's line, offer my pathetic savings, and pray the famous god of fortune noticed me for even half a second. Maybe rank 1. Or maybe absolutely nothing. Maybe the well would just go dark, leaving me as another quiet failure escorted away by guards. Instead, I leaned in and typed the words I remembered from the novel's forgotten margin first path. The clerk frowned as the screen flickered. For a second, nothing happened. Then the search results collapsed into a single restricted file buried deep under 3 layers of inactive shrine records. The clerk stopped chewing his gum as a location appeared first. Lower cathedral level, sealed corridor, unmaintained chapel. Then the file name began loading one letter at a time, like the registry itself was too terrified to say it out loud, Aelia of the first step. And beneath her name, where a divine title should have been, the terminal displayed only a single warning, no active followers recorded. The clerk stared at me like I had just asked for directions to a grave. "Kid," he muttered, his voice suddenly losing its boredom. "He told me nobody worships that one." I smiled, even though my hands were shaking, and replied that was exactly the point. The clerk printed the access slip like he was handing me a death certificate with slightly better formatting. A thin strip of gray paper slid right under the glass. Printed on it were 3 cheerful little words, "Lower Cathedral Access." Right below that, the registry added a warning in bright red ink. "No staff assistance guaranteed." This is absolutely perfect. Even the building itself was telling me that if I died down there, it was going to be my problem. The clerk leaned back, giving me one last look. He seemed tired rather than angry or worried, like he had watched far too many idiots mistake sheer desperation for actual inspiration. He warned me that once you enter a shrine path, the cathedral records it. If you offer and she accepts, you understand what that means, right? One god, one faction, and absolutely no takebacks unless someone cuts the mark right out of you, or you die. I folded the access slip and quietly walked away from the old registry. Every single step toward the lower cathedral felt heavier than the last. The Golden Hall was still behind me. Safe, bright, popular, and expensive. Orion Drake's hall had music, priests, velvet ropes, wealthy families, and enough gold to make a literal dragon file taxes. Aelia's path had a gray access slip, a warning label, and me. Stunning lineup. I had just reached the side stairwell when someone called out behind me. West, naturally. Blake Harrington stood right near the registry arch with Trent Bishop standing beside him. Trent was still carrying his polished relic case. Blake's eyes dropped to the paper in my hand, asking what I had found. Trent laughed, saying it was privacy, guessing I found a janitor staircase. Then Blake stepped closer and caught the printed name before I could hide it. His smile widened. "Oh, this is beautiful. And trust me, guys, a happy Blake is never a good sign." Blake lifted his voice just enough for the nearby candidates to hear, announcing that Dorian West is going to worship Aelia of the first step. A few heads turn. One guy opens his candidate app, searches the name, and snorts when the screen loads. Trent leans over his shoulder to read the screen out loud: minor domestic blessing, first attempts, and childhood milestones. He looks up with a massive grin, asking if I need help learning to walk. Laughter spreads fast. It is a small, mean sound, the kind of ugly ripple when someone gets crushed. Blake taps his relic case, admitting he underestimated me, West. Most desperate candidates throw themselves at a real, powerful god, but I somehow managed to find a goddess for toddlers. When I argue she has a shrine, Blake corrects me, dead things have files, not shrines. That hits hard. No active followers. The official registry shows no priest, no staff, and absolutely no current offerings. Here, followers feed gods. Prayers anchor them, giving power to answer. A god without worship is basically a corpse with paperwork. No sleeping dragon here. I tighten my grip on the access slip and head down the stairwell, with Blake following right behind. Trent tags along too, looking like the exact kind of guy who would chase a fire alarm if there was a fight. We reach the bottom. By then, I have a whole crowd watching as a sealed corridor waits. It is painfully different from the marble halls above, with flickering emergency lights. There is just a heavy metal gate with a scanner, completely lacking the gold trim, floating lights, or choir music. Trent plugs his nose while Blake sneers. This is not where they keep a goddess, it is where they forget one. I press my slip to the scanner, but nothing happens. Behind me, someone whispers that I got rejected by the door. But get this, the gate groans open, rust scraping loudly against stone. An angry beast wakes, the corridor shakes, and nobody laughs for a full 2 seconds. Dorian. I turn around, seeing Mira Caldwell standing at the gate. She is smart, careful, and has that perfectly calm face that always makes teachers think she is highly responsible. Mira looks past the guys, turns her gaze back to me, and asks if I am actually going through with this. Not amused at all. I joke about the bad smell, but her mouth tightens. Tough crowd. She steps closer and whispers her warning Aelia is inactive. If she accepts me, I will be bound to a faction with no resources, no church support, no protection, and zero path forward. Blake claps mockingly from behind, laughing that even Caldwell thinks I am being stupid, and she basically collects charity cases for fun. Mira glares at him, snapping that he supplied the stupid himself. She turns back to me, warning that I only get one path, so if I want to gamble, pick a god who can answer. That is the catch. I believe Aelia can answer, but I do not know if she will. The hallway ends at a crooked wooden door reading Aelia of the first step. No sacred flame or fancy carved statue either. The door only bears a faded symbol of a footprint inside an open circle. Blake bursts out laughing. Trent doubles over, wheezing about the divine power of baby steps. I just stare at the symbol. Everyone else only notices a childish footprint. Now look closer, that circle is not just for show, it has tiny breaks, like branching roads. Most have been scratched away, but not all. Suddenly, my head throbbed, and a line from the novel flashed in my mind. Every road starts somewhere. I push open the door to thick gray dust. Broken benches lean against walls, and dead candles sit melted down into ugly, forgotten lumps. Across the room stands a bare stone pedestal. No statue, just an empty base and a completely dry offering well. The well is small, round, and lined with dark stone. No glow, no incense. Half the dedication carved on the rim is completely scratched away. I crouch to wipe away the dust, reading the remaining words for the first step before the road. My pulse spikes. This is no baby blessing. Mira notices, and her face shifts. Blake hovers at the entrance, refusing to step inside like poverty is some kind of contagious disease. Well, there it is, the legendary shrine of almost learning to crawl. Blake mocks, while Trent kicks a broken bench. Wood splinters. When I warn him, Trent scoffs, asking who he is offending. Everyone burst out laughing, and my ears burned. The place felt more abandoned than evil, like someone took a living thing, stripped away its identity, threw the shell into a basement, and just waited for history to forget it. Shaking, I stepped toward the offering well and opened my pouch. Inside lay a few crumpled bills, a receipt, and a single, old silver dollar. It was scratched and dull, probably worth exactly $1, unless the universe had a sixth sense of irony. The moment I pulled it out, Blake smirked, mocking me, asking if a single coin was really my grand offering. He showed off his relic case, bragging that Orion only takes prosperity relics, land deeds, and real gold. He laughed that my goddess was getting laundry money. I stared at the dry well, then she and I have something in common. Here I was, betting my only real shot in this lifetime on a ruined shrine and a scratched-up inscription, all based on a single line from a web novel, a line that was either brilliant foreshadowing or just the author writing gibberish at 3 in the morning. Mira stepped up to warn me quietly. Dorian, if she actually accepts your offering, the temple is going to record this. I know, I muttered. I grabbed a blank prayer slip from the table, right next to an old ritual blade locked inside cracked glass. I slammed the heel of my palm through the glass. Today was basically a speedrun of sacred vandalism. The blade was small, silver. Mira gasped, blood offering. Blake stopped smiling. Blood offerings were legal, but highly dangerous. Using blood meant real, personal risk. If a god rejects you, that backfire can easily kill you. I pricked my thumb, feeling instant, sharp pain. As blood pooled on my skin, my shaking fingers wrote slowly. To Aelia of the first step, to the first step before the road, to the fortune before gold. I offer the little I have. Suddenly, the chapel went silent. Water was still dripping from above, and I could hear Trent breathing heavily, but the mockery had completely vanished. That silence was when real dread set in. Mocking was easy. This quiet left room for failure. I set the coin onto the bloody slip, folded it once, and held my breath over the empty well. You can feel the sheer pity of it. A bruised, broke, sponsorless idiot, offering a dirty coin to a goddess without even a statue. Then I dropped it. The paper vanished into the dark. I waited. Still nothing. The well stayed dry. No divine light, no warm aura, not even a tiny spark. Absolutely nothing. Trent was the first one to let out a breath. Then he roared, slamming his hand against the door frame. "Oh man," he wheezed, "she totally ignored your dollar." Blake smirked as if watching my entire life wash down a dirty drain. Mira just looked away, and honestly, that hurt much worse. I stared down, begging for something to happen. Blake stepped closer, asking if he should call for help. He sneered that maybe this useless goddess only answers when babies cry louder. My mouth opened, but my comeback completely vanished. Because right beneath his smug voice, and beneath the dripping water, I caught a tiny, distinct sound. A quiet clink. The laughter suddenly died. The coin landed, which was completely impossible. The well was only about 20 feet deep, but that coin had fallen for way too long. Everyone stared. Then it echoed again. Another clink, but even fainter, bouncing further. Mira whispered that there is no way this well goes that deep. On the pedestal, the ancient footprint symbol flickered once. A trace of black gold light snaked through the dust on the floor. It was so faint I almost thought I imagined it. Blake backed away. And just like that, the laughter completely dies. Watch this cold air drafts from the well, carrying a woman's voice from impossibly deep below. She asks who still calls for the first step. Honestly, my instinct was to yell back that it was me. Luckily, sheer terror paralyzed my tongue before my mouth could say something incredibly stupid. The air in the chapel felt wrong, a heavy pressure I could feel in my teeth. The floating dust suddenly froze. Freezing air from the pit wrapped around my face, my throat, and my bloody thumb. The others were still behind me, but their voices sounded muffled, as if the room had been thrown underwater. Blake opened his mouth, but absolutely nothing came out. Honestly, that was the most peaceful he had been all day. I leaned over the pit, trying my best not to look terrified out of my mind in this dark basement. I introduced myself as Dorian West, telling her that I was the one who called for Aelia. Deep below, the shifting darkness felt exactly like some ancient, massive beast slowly opening a single, tired eye. The woman's voice drifted back up thin and distant, but with unmistakable steel underneath. She slowly repeated the name Aelia, as if tasting it. She called it a small, broken name, asking who taught it to me. That question nearly killed me. Not physically, at least. But how could I tell her that I actually read all about her in a web novel before my past life ended? I had a pretty strong feeling the goddess in this murder basement would react badly. Gods usually hate being called side lore, so I had to lie and piece together some wild story. I told her the official registry calls her the goddess of first steps, but her ancient carvings say something deeper. Like how Drake is called the god of fortune, yet his followers only pray for gold and profit. It never made sense to me. A dark gold line pulsed across the floor as her voice sharpened. My stomach absolutely dropped. And trust me, you would be terrified too. She heard everything. I nodded, hoping she could see me. Real wealth only comes after you get a chance, open a door, and actually survive long enough to win. True fortune has to start before wealth can even exist. For a long, tense second, the well fell silent. Behind me, Mira stood frozen near the broken benches, her hand half raised like she wanted to pull me back but could not break through the heavy pressure around the altar. Even Blake stopped smiling. Trent looked like he was genuinely trying to decide if punching a ghost counted as self-defense. The voice asked if I was a priest. No, just a historian, which basically means a professional liar. I swallowed hard. A sound came from the well like a dry laugh buried for 1,000 years and dug up angry. She said at least I was not foolish enough to deny it. Tiny mercy, but I will take it. Sudden cold crawled up my arm, and the fresh cut on my thumb burned. A faint ring of black gold light swirled right under my skin, vanishing before it could become a proper mark. She called my offering pathetic. And yeah, she was right. Just one single coin, one drop of blood, and one prayer from a starving, desperate candidate. Brutal feedback, but totally accurate. The heavy pressure deepened, but she said the coin carried my very last shred of certainty. My blood carried risk. The words held memory. Tiny things carry massive weight when they are the very first. Just like that, my breathing hitched. There was that word again, first. This was not just some beginner luck. First meant the starting point before anything else could even exist. I wanted to ask what she was, why her statue vanished, and why her shrine lay rotting deep under the cathedral. Her name felt like a cheap label slapped over something massive, but the air in my throat suddenly squeezed tight. The goddess whispered, "Do not try to open sealed doors with bleeding fingers, Dorian West. Some doors bite." Man, even divine mysteries come with warnings. Cute. I forced myself to stay on my knees, begging her to give me a way to survive until I could open them properly. Silence fell again. This pause felt heavier. She said I asked for a blessing, but I barked back that I only wanted a chance. It slipped out. The well went dead quiet. Then her voice softened, murmuring about choosing a chance over gold, victory over simple safety. If I wanted safety, I would be upstairs begging Orion to ignore me. But then, a sudden warmth flickered deep inside the biting cold. It was tiny, barely there, but it hit my chest like a match struck in a dark room. Then, she whispered the name Orion. The freezing tone she used for his name made my skin crawl. This was not just standard hatred. It sounded ancient and ugly, like pain wearing a crown. Then the feeling vanished. She told me she could not give what she did not have, since followers no longer gave her strength. No prayers carried her name anymore, and no offerings ever filled her well. The world forgot the door, so the door was basically gone. Talk about a disappointing answer. I really wanted her to congratulate me, hand me an infinite money cheat, and tell me to enjoy being rich. Instead, I got divine bankruptcy, which is just classic Dorian luck. But she continued, saying I remembered enough to call out and risked enough to actually be heard. Because of that, she promised to give me one beginning. Instantly, the black gold line shot forward and slammed into my chest. And check this out, for a split second, my mind flooded with endless doors. Hidden possibilities, openings, and paths only desperate people would dare to take. A card slipping from a sleeve, a lock replaced too recently, or a secret price no one else understood. This path only appeared if you were desperate enough to take the leap. Then, the vision shattered. I collapsed backward, gasping for air. A faint crescent shape burned over my heart, under my skin. It was too faint to be a proper faction mark, and too bizarre for any cathedral scanner to read. It felt like a promise written in invisible ink, as Aelia whispered those final words, "First chance." The words sank deep into my soul. A single favorable opening, but she warned me it would not carry me if I just stood still. It would never reward cowardice. If I risked something I could not afford to lose, the path might answer. Might, she reminded me, since she was forgotten, not generous. Painfully fair. The freezing cold finally released my throat, and the dark gold light faded back into the heavy dust. Sound suddenly rushed back into the chapel. Someone cursed, someone else stumbled, and Trent yelped like a wild dog had bitten him. Blake desperately grabbed the door frame, trying to pretend he had not almost face-planted backward. Mira reached me first, grabbing my shoulder before I could tip sideways into the well. Honestly, falling in would have been an incredibly embarrassing way to die after finally getting a god's attention. "What happened?" she asked. I just blinked at her. "Good news," she answered. Mira's eyes dropped to my chest, then my thumb, then back to the well. "Did she accept you?" "I think she gave me a trial run," I said. Blake scoffed, muttering about a drafty well and a basement echo. "Is that what you guys call a divine response now?" he mocked. I looked past Mira at him. Blake's face tightened as the floor cracked under him. A couple of bystanders made the mistake of laughing. Blake's eyes went cold, and the laughter died instantly. He still had money, status, and that golden relic. I had a bloody thumb and a basement ghost. Socially, I was still a nobody. A sudden buzz against my hip. My cracked phone screen lit up all on its own. For a split second, I panicked, thinking the cathedral flagged me for heresy. With my luck, the email subject line would say, "Congratulations, you committed heresy." But it wasn't from them. It was just a spam alert from some random auction app Dorian downloaded months ago. Even his phone was too poor to pass up bad deals. Southside Storage Estate auction tonight only. Unclaimed unit from a deceased cathedral archivist, starting at $10. The alert had been buried for weeks. Now it sat at the top of my screen, like someone dragged it out of a grave. A dead archivist. My heart started racing. Mira read enough over my shoulder to frown deeply. "You cannot seriously go there after what just happened," she warned. "I cannot afford therapy," I replied. "Beautiful," he sneered. His goddess sent him coupon hunting. Maybe she did. Or maybe first chance opened the only path I could actually afford. I marched out of the chapel before anyone could stop me, ignoring the fact that my knees were still shaking. By sunset, I was standing right behind a chain-link fence at Southside Storage. I was surrounded by bargain hunters, cheap scavengers, and guys who could smell mold through solid concrete. My entire net worth after bus fare was $1,242. I felt absolutely rich. The doors rolled open, just dusty old furniture, boxes, and broken appliances. People bid like wolves over trash, but wait till you see Unit C-17. The crowd literally groaned. A sagging mattress, cracked bins, a dead lamp, and damp cardboard. The kind of nasty locker that made you want a tetanus shot just for looking inside. Bidding started at $10, but nobody moved. I almost kept my mouth shut, which would have been the smart choice, meaning, not my style. But then, I spotted the lock. Brand new. Too new. The boxes were ancient and dusty, but that lock had zero rust. Someone changed it recently, then just vanished. Behind a rotting mattress, one box had a faded cathedral archive stamp. Suddenly, my chest burned. Not quite pain, more like a finger tapping from inside. First chance was calling. Of course, my path was inside a literal dumpster fire. I raised my hand and bid $12. The auctioneer stared, saying the open was $10. I know, I replied, trying to sound confident. A few folks chuckled, but nobody bid against me. The auctioneer shrugged. Sold to the kid with $12 and awful instincts. Accurate. The second the locker became mine, the warm feeling under my chest vanished. Just gone. First chance had paid out, meaning if this was just a box of moldy trash, I was done. I spent 20 minutes digging through garbage, trying not to think about how I gambled my life savings on advice from a voice in a literal hole. Then, I stumbled onto a sealed card case. Inside were vintage baseball cards in mint condition. Next came a signed guitar pick in a hard case. And a roll of real silver quarters. This haul would not buy me a mansion, but it kept my bank account from being a joke. Behind the cathedral stamped box, wrapped tight in oiled cloth, was a thick leather ledger. The cover was cracked and smelled of ash and dust. Embossed on the front was that familiar footprint inside a broken circle. My hands went numb. Right on cue, a man in a dark green suit stepped in front of me. He was way too clean to be here, sporting fancy gold cufflinks shaped like scales. Pure golden Dominion style. He stared at the book, then at me, saying smoothly that he collected church records. $2,000 for a damaged book. $2,000 for a moldy ledger he saw for 3 seconds. My empty wallet screamed, "Take it," but my brain actually kicked in. Nobody offers $2,000 for trash unless it can hurt them. I tucked the ledger under my arm. "Sorry," I said. "Sentimental value." The man's smile faded as he warned I had no idea what I was holding. "No way," I say, stepping deeper into the storage unit. "But I am finally catching on to your game." His eyes narrow. For a split second, I actually thought he was going to lunge and grab it. But then someone nearby shouted, and his face instantly relaxed. He tosses a business card onto a cracked bin, telling me to call if I change my mind. I finally breathe once he is gone. Then, the moldy book shivers in my hands. The brass lock snaps open all by itself. The pages rapidly blur past ancient records, names and burnt stamps, finally halting right under my trembling thumb. A title slowly appears in faded black ink: Property Record, First Chapel of Aelia. This book did not just open. It felt like a direct accusation. This was not some minor inactive blessing or a dusty storage closet for a forgotten goddess. It clearly stated First Chapel, written in ancient, legal ink, complete with an official church seal stamped so hard it left a massive, physical dent in the thick paper. Standing there amidst the smell of damp cardboard and rot, I realized this moldy book was worth way more than $2,000. Now, I do not know about you, but that shady broker slipping away so easily did not make me feel safe. Think about it. When a wealthy guy offers $2,000 for trash and calmly leaves after a refusal, he is not quitting. He is just planning a much nastier way to steal it. I slam the book shut and hide it inside my jacket. I quickly stuff the vintage cards and silver coins into my backpack. That junk will keep me fed for at least a week. This heavy book is exactly the sort of thing that gets a guy killed in some dark alley. So, of course, I run to the cathedral. I spend the whole bus ride clutching my chest. Every single passenger who glances my way suddenly looks like a high-class thug. I keep picturing church security, hired muscle, or worse, a slightly smarter, and therefore highly dangerous, Blake Harrington. Night has settled over downtown. By the time I finally arrive at the Grand Cathedral, Orion Drake's massive gold statue is glowing bright, because of course it is. Some gods get spotlights, while Aelia gets basement mildew. Inside, the offering season is in full swing. Too many 18-year-olds are desperately trying to buy a future before the trials end. I walk right through the doors, dirty and bruised, clutching this incredibly suspicious ledger beneath my jacket. The old clerk spots me, his bored face instantly shattering the second I drop the book on his counter. He stares at the footprint inside the broken circle, then looks up at me, then back down at the symbol. He demands to know where I got it. An estate auction, I reply. His eyes narrow, recognizing a church archive. Perfect, I say. Just read it. But his hesitation makes my stomach do a flip. That face? It is a man dodging a lawsuit or a curse. He finally opens it. The instant his hand grazes the paper, the terminal screen flickers. A strange black and gold line starts crawling across the display. The clerk freezes completely as the screen spits out two bright alerts: dormant chapel record detected. Resonance detected. Suddenly, the massive verification arch behind the desk roars to life, its bright lights snapping on one by one. White, blue, and then gold, the clerk mutters under his breath. Hearing that from him is definitely not comforting. And right here, everyone? This is the exact moment we realized he messed up big time. Suddenly, every single eye in the room locks directly onto me. An artificial voice commands candidate Dorian West to step into the verification arch. I look over at the clerk, who already looks like he is about to quit on the spot. I ask if I can say no. The automated voice cuts in immediately, warning that refusal is treated as trying to hide my divine status. What a totally generous policy, I mutter, reluctantly stepping inside the humming metal frame of the arch. Soft light sweeps over my beat-up face, dusty jacket, and the ledger. The crescent mark over my heart begins to burn. But the first reading fails. The second scan fails even worse. By the third, the entire arch is buzzing loud. A crowd gathers instantly, and since the universe loves bad jokes, Blake Harrington walks out of his fancy hall right at that moment. A fresh, golden faction mark is glowing brightly right near his wrist. A floating screen hovers next to him, showing off his golden Dominion Rank 1 divinity. The crowd around him is cheering. Blake looks like a guy who was just chosen by fate, already planning how to smirk when the peasants start kissing his feet. But then his eyes lock on me, and his smile instantly sharpens. "Hey West," he sneers, "did your basement goddess finally give you a certificate just for crawling?" Trent laughs right behind him. A couple of people laugh along, but they sound nervous. They can sense the tension. It is easy to laugh until the floor starts glowing. Suddenly, the automated scanner announces an unknown divinity has been detected. All laughter dies instantly. Blake stopped in his tracks. The archlights shifted from gold to a deep, cold black gold that made everyone back away. The scanner kept running. Domain classification was completely unstable. The clerk swallowed hard. Mira Calbell appeared at the edge of the crowd, likely drawn by the alert. Her eyes met mine. She didn't look smug, she looked pretty worried. That was becoming her signature look. The scanner tried one more time. Domain match found. The air went tight before the display flashed to life. Unknown divinity detected. Domain first path and fortune route. Divinity rank 3. For one beautiful second, the entire registry hall forgot to breathe. Then it exploded. Candidates started shouting and someone cursed out loud. Someone yelled that the machine was broken. Blake just stared at the display like it had personally insulted his entire family. Rank 3, Trent squeaked, voice cracking. I wanted the record to show I didn't laugh. Internally, I was throwing a whole parade. Honestly, you love to see it. Blake's rank 1 tag suddenly looked incredibly embarrassing. I tried so hard not to stare at his sad tag. But I failed, Blake noticed, and his face turned bright red. He muttered it was impossible since the shrine was inactive. Mira stepped closer, her eyes glued to the machine. Inactive gods don't produce rank 3 resonance, Mira pointed out. Then the machine is wrong, Blake snapped, right before things got even worse. A second line flashed beneath my rank. Secondary blessing channels sealed. It was gone in 2 seconds. Then the screen flickered. A man in a dark suit crossed the room with fast, calculated steps, wearing a gold-trimmed cathedral badge. He wasn't a priest, he was administration. The exact kind of guy who could ruin your life with a stamp and sleep like a baby. The crowd quickly parted. The old clerk straightened up. Director Reeve. So this was Malcolm Reeve, the local Golden Dominion administrator, pure cathedral authority. He had a professional smile and dead eyes. He looked at the scanner, then at me, and finally at my ledger. A tiny flicker of emotion crossed his face. It looked like recognition with deep fear underneath. It vanished fast, but not fast enough. Reeve raised his hand and ordered the reading sealed. The archlight snapped off. The main screen went pitch black. Immediately, a wave of loud protests rose from the crowd. Verification error, Reeve announced smoothly, claiming dormant shrines produced distorted readings. He ordered everyone not to share any of the data. But several candidates had already recorded the whole thing on their phones, so good luck stopping that. Reeve turned to me, calling out my name, Dorian West. I wiped my sweaty hand on my jacket, joking that my unpaid bills say the same. The room stayed painfully quiet as Reeves stared at my ledger. He remarked that I seemed to have recovered cathedral property. I explained that I bought it at a public storage auction. But he replied that church archive materials aren't personal property. I told him his church should stop losing them in storage units. Beside us, the old clerk made a tiny choking sound. Reeves' fake smile didn't move. He said the ledger only proved that a chapel once existed. He added that it didn't prove the shrine was safe, funded, or transferable. Talk about a total nightmare. There was the trap inside this miracle. I finally had proof Aelia's chapel was real, but being real didn't mean it was protected. Reeve raised his voice for the crowd to hear. He declared the lower site unmaintained, dangerous, and tied to an inactive goddess. Under official cathedral policy, it was eligible to be decommissioned. My chest instantly went cold. Decommissioning, I repeated. Reeve called it a polite term for demolition, sealing, and erasing it from the public registry. Blake's smug confidence started crawling back onto his face. I quietly asked the clerk if they could actually do that. He hesitated. Reeve answered for him. Yes, unless a qualified claimant files a restoration bond and takes full legal responsibility for the site. Fine, I said, asking how much it would cost. Reeve stared at my dirty jacket, cheap shoes, and my worn-out backpack strap. He already knew I couldn't afford it. That was his whole point. $900,000, he said, due in 7 days. The room went silent. I only had some old cards and a few quarters. So, basically, I was almost there. Blake finally grinned, mockingly congratulating me. He sneered that my goddess now had a price tag. I grabbed the ledger, but Reeve held out his hand, demanding it stay there. No. The word slipped out before common sense could stop me. Reeve's eyes hardened, but I kept pushing my luck today. This ledger is evidence in an active claimant dispute, I argued, pointing out he just gave me 7 days. If you want to take the only proof this shrine exists, file a seizure order with the Iron Bench. Honestly, I had no clue if that was even a real rule. But Reeve paused. That single hesitation was enough to tell me it wasn't complete nonsense. Slowly, he lowered his hand. 7 days, he muttered. After that, the lower chapel will be sealed and stripped. If you interfere, your candidate status is suspended pending a divine misconduct review. With that, he turned and walked away. Blake leans in close, whispering to start saving my lunch money. I just smile back. Careful. At this rate, I might accidentally outrank your family by dessert. His jaw tightens. Petty? Absolutely. But the moment the crowd starts thinning out, real fear hits me. Rank 3. Just 7 days. $900,000. An administrator stared at Aelia's symbol like it crawled from under his bed. I grabbed the ledger, running back down before security changed their minds. The hallway feels freezing cold now. Aelia's door swings open the second I touch it. No scanner needed, no lock to fight. It simply clicks open to reveal the dry well waiting beneath the empty pedestal. The broken chapel looks exactly the same as before. But now, I finally understand something ugly. This isn't just some forgotten room. This is a throat, Aelia's very last way to breathe into this world. I step to the well, clutching the ledger. I got your chapel recognized, I say. Sort of. Bad news is, it comes with a $900,000 punchline. The well remains dark. Then, a faint draft of freezing air rises from below. Aelia's voice comes through, weaker than before. If this well is buried, she whispers, my voice goes down with it. My fingers tighten around the ledger. How long do we have? The icy answer brushes my bloody thumb. 7 days, the exact same number Reeve gave me. But here is the absolute kicker because the cathedral and the goddess actually agree on one thing. My time is running out. Needing $900,000 in 7 days absolutely wrecks your confidence. I sit down on the broken floor of the side room, the ledger open on my knees, and a backpack of weird auction junk sitting beside me, and the financial power of a raccoon with a checking account, silver quarters, and a guitar pick. Still 897,000 short. Basically solved. Through the open doorway, cold air from Aelia's dry well blows right against my ankles. Her voice drifts faintly from the main room. Coin is not the only offering. I look at the empty pedestal. Please tell that to Director Reeve. He seems extremely coin positive. Aelia whispers that the cathedral named a price for the stone, but not for her. That stops me. I look down at the ledger again. The page after the property record isn't a deed. It is a list of ordinary people, not famous names or noble families. Elias Reed, first shop opened after fire. Maribel Torres, first child who survived winter. Jonah Pike, first step taken after injury. Ruth Bell, first voyage west. Under each name lies a footprint inside a broken circle, stamped beside old offerings so tiny they would have made Blake laugh until he choked. 2 copper cents, a button, a child's shoe ribbon, a train ticket, and a wedding nail. Tiny, supposedly meaningless things. Yet, the page trembles under my fingers like those names aren't just dead ink. Are they followers? I ask. Memories, Aelia says. Some were mine, some almost. The world scraped them away. Her voice cracks at the end. That's when I understood the real problem. Reeve wants $900,000 because money is the language his side controls. But Alia hadn't answered me because I was rich. You see, she didn't care about the money. She answered because I remembered. So maybe the next offering doesn't need to be bigger. Maybe it needs to be deeper. I spend the next few hours hunched over the ledger like a sleep-deprived grave robber with homework. I copy every single name I can read onto fresh prayer slips from the side drawer. When the slips run out, I use old notices, trial pamphlets, and one glossy Dominion brochure I found near the stairs. That one felt pretty good. For each name, I write what the ledger still remembers. First shop, first child, first journey, first recovery, first vow. Alia is quiet while I work. Sometimes the well gives a weak pulse when a name is written right. Sometimes nothing happens, and I squint at half-burned ink until my eyes hate me. Near midnight, Mira finds me in the doorway. She holds 2 paper cups of vending machine coffee, looking like she has spent hours debating with herself about getting involved in my mess. You look terrible, she says. I am cultivating mystery. You have dust in your hair and blood on your sleeve. Advanced mystery. Then, she comes inside but stops short of the doorway. Smart. Her eyes move over the copied names, silver quarters, and blood-stained slips. What are you doing? She asks. Trying to save a goddess with arts and crafts. Mira doesn't laugh. I tell her the safe version. The ledger proves Aelia had worshippers, and the chapel needs restoration. Money is the legal problem, but recognition might be the divine one. I don't mention the first chance, or that I'm a dead man wearing Dorian West's bad credit score like a costume. Mira listens, setting one coffee down. Reeve sealed the scanner logs, she says, but people still recorded your rank 3 display. Blake is blaming everything on corrupted basement resonance. He even joked that our goddess produces mold allergies. Honestly, that part might actually be true. Mara crouches near the pages, warning that offering those names will alert the cathedral. Right. Definitely not a warning label we should test. I look at her, and she just sighs. Dorian Reeve did not look confused at all. He recognized this. Make another weird offering, and he will move even faster. I wish I had a real plan. Instead, I just have dead names, $7 in quarters, and pure panic-fueled optimism. I know, I tell her. Mira's tough expression softens for a brief second. Then do not do it alone, she says. Before I can answer, heavy footsteps echo from the corridor above. Those heavy steps do not belong to candidates. Mira pales, and I grab the original ledger immediately. 3 men wearing cathedral maintenance jackets appear at the broken vestry door. But they are not carrying any tools. Their boots are spotless, and one has gold cufflinks under his sleeve. This is how they plan to take the ledger. The lead man smiles. Dorian West. He demands we return the cathedral archival property on Director Reeves' orders. Mara steps up, demanding their seizure order. He smiles politely, says no, and steps inside the vestry anyway. So much for legal paperwork. I snatch the prayer slips, shove them into the leather cover, and bolt toward the side aisle. Super heroic, right? Except I smash my knee against a broken bench so hard I literally see stars and 3 random gods. The first guy lunges. Mara grabs a cracked candle stand and swings it right into his path. It slams down with a massive clang. Mara screams at me to run, and I do not hesitate. I bolt. Another guy grabs my jacket. Fabric rips. I twist around, slip halfway out, and leave the whole jacket behind. For a split second, his hand touches the ledger. The cover snaps shut on his fingers. His sudden scream tells me this book has teeth for enemies. Honestly, that just makes me love it even more. I sprint down the corridor, clutching the ledger and the prayers to my chest. Heavy boots are hammering behind me. Mara yells out. Someone curses, and the alarm starts wailing as the old access slip in my pocket sparks with gold. The well-room door swings open just in time, and I dive straight inside. It slams shut behind me with a heavy thud. Outside, the pursuing men throw themselves against the old wood, pounding over and over. The door shudders but holds. I stumble to the well and dump everything onto the floor. Names, coins, slips, and the ledger. I even wrote my vow on Reeves' old dismissal notice because I am petty like that. My hands are shaking so badly I almost drop the blade, slicing my thumb open directly over the roll of silver quarters. Blood marks the silver coins. I do not have $900,000. I whisper to the well that I have no followers, no statue, and no clean jacket left. The door shakes violently, but I have these names. the well goes freezing cold. Quickly, I gather the slips back into the ledger. The names press against the record, and the bloody coins roll into the folds like moons. I offer proof that you were remembered, making my vow. Suddenly, the loud hammering outside completely stops. That silence scares me more than the noise. I hover the ledger over the well, hesitating because if this fails, I am totally finished. Trapped in a dark basement with angry thugs, a dying goddess, and enough legal trouble to make my ghost need a lawyer. I let go, watching it fall into the dry darkness. At first, nothing, because divine miracles love dramatic pauses. But then, watch this, names start whispering from the walls around me. Elias Reed, Maribel Torres, Jonah Pike, Ruth Bell. The dead candles suddenly flare black gold. The broken footprint symbol on the stone pedestal splits open, revealing a wheel of faint, sealed marks surrounding it. One mark of a falling coin lights up first. Aelia's voice rises, filled with pain, whispering that if one servant remains, then she was never truly alone. A second voice answers from above, rough and laughing, sounding like someone just kicked open a tavern door after a century outside. Finally, it laughs. I thought the whole court went bankrupt. A coin strikes stone inside my chest, and raw power floods through me. This power is black gold instead of a warm shine, sharp, moving, and hungry for any openings. A round mark burns beside Aelia's crescent under my skin, but it does not tear away from her. It nests inside, like a smaller door opening within a larger one, as the voice announces Maver Coinfall answers the first call. The chapel floor cracks open. The men outside shout, and far above us, the cathedral scanner begins to scream. A loud alarm shrieked down the lower hallway. Multiple divine signatures detected, then another siren wailed even louder. A god conflict suspected? Oh, brilliant. I gasped, grabbing my chest. The whole system thinks I just betrayed Aelia. Aelia's voice cut through the agony. Not separate, she said. The coin mark fused directly with the crescent. The alarm stuttered. A new announcement blasted over the speakers. Candidate Dorian West Divinity rank updated. The door slammed open. Mira stood there, completely breathless, with 2 security guards and half a dozen other candidates crowding behind her. Heavy boots scrambled up the stairwell. The maintenance crew had bolted. The second witnesses started showing up. Of course, Blake and Trent arrived. My humiliation must run on a lifetime subscription. Everyone stared at the black gold light radiating from the chapel. Then the system spoke one final time. Divinity rank 4. Complete silence. Blake's face turned pale as spoiled milk. I tried to stand, tripped once, but managed to pull myself up using Aelia's well. Inside my chest, the coin hummed softly, signaling a new beginning, not a victory. Suddenly, the upper hall erupted into shouting. This was pure panic, not celebration. Heavy doors banged open above the stairs. Private security rushed in first, followed by medics in white coats, and then a stern man wearing a pricey black suit. Right behind him came a young woman with cold eyes and blood on one sleeve. Between them, on a levitating stretcher, lay an old man with gray, lifeless lips. The ultra-rich had arrived, bringing death with them. Someone shouted to make way for the Ashford family. Inside my chest, that strange coin rang again, much louder this time. My knees were shaking and my rank 4 mark burned, but I knew opportunity had arrived. Let's be honest, the rich do not run unless death is faster than their money. That was my instant reaction as the Ashford family swept in, acting like they owned the marble, the guards, and the very air itself. I was still holding onto the edge of Aelia as well, my chest burning from that rank 4 mark, while their security guards shoved other candidates out of the way. Medics pushed the floating stretcher down the hallway. On it lay Henry Ashford, a famous name even a nobody like me recognized. We are talking old money, private rail lines, and massive shipping contracts. His portrait probably frowns at normal people in 3 different boardrooms. Right now, he looked like a dead body forced to keep breathing for 5 more minutes. His lips had faded to a sickly gray, and dark, dead veins crept up his neck. His chest jerked erratically, as if some internal wire was being snipped. Walking alongside him was Graham Ashford, the old man's son. Graham held onto the stretcher with a white-knuckled grip, barked out a single demand, "Where is Monroe?" The bloody-sleeved girl beside him had to be Sienna Ashford. She was the granddaughter, wielding a calm face and incredibly dangerous energy. She looked young, but she also looked like she would order your execution and calmly correct your spelling while doing it. Reeve stepped out at the top of the stairs, keeping his expression incredibly tight. Nothing ruins a perfect cover-up like billionaires dragging a dying patriarch into the same building where your basement heresy alarm is still wailing. Reeve stepped in, saying, "Mr. Ashford, the cathedral is handling a security incident." Graham snapped back, "My father is dying, handle that first." Honestly, it was hard to argue. A doctor stepped through the crowd. His silver hair was brushed back, and his hands already pulsed with a soft, healing light. This was Dr. Elias Monroe, a rank 4 healer of the White Choir. Everyone reacted like a massive superstar had walked in. Just think about it, even the candidates who witnessed my sudden rank up stared at him with absolute reverence. My new rank 4 was raw, illegal, and smelled of basement dirt. Elias Monroe was polished, fully licensed, and famous. Checking Henry's neck, the doctor's face darkened instantly as he demanded to know how long the patriarch had been like this. Graham answered, worsening for 9 days, critical for 2 hours. Sienna silently agreed. 3 healing attempts already failed, and their Golden Dominion stabilizer shattered after slowing the collapse. Hearing that made the coin inside me ring so violently, I nearly flinched. Maverick's mark never explained its own secrets. It did not give me a giant glowing arrow labeled obvious plot opportunity. It simply struck that coin and expected me to use my head. The doctor raised his hands, ordering everyone to back off. People moved. I did not. Mainly because my legs felt like cooked noodles. Mira grabbed me, yelling at me to move. She dragged me away regardless. Blinding white light bloomed around Elias. This was living magic. Not some cheap candle or scanner glow, but holy light wrapping Henry in shining, translucent wings of healing sigils. Everyone watched in complete silence. For one brief second, it actually worked. Henry's breathing calmed down, and those dark veins retreated. Graham's face tightened with a hope so raw it actually hurt to watch. Then, something golden snapped deep inside Henry's chest. The white light suddenly twisted, making Elias's eyes go wide. The healing runes shredded like paper in a storm. A sudden burst of white flame blasted Aelia straight back. He slammed onto the floor, skidding across the cold marble and spitting up blood. Henry convulsed. The black veins surged back darker, and the crowd screamed. Graham lunged for the stretcher, but Sienna grabbed his arm, warning him that the backlash was still active. Her voice sounded steady, but her fingers were trembling. That was when I saw it, with a strange new vision burning behind my eyes. Right around Henry Ashford. There should have been a path forward, a tiny opening, some treatment to buy him time or turn a mistake into luck. Instead, I saw nothing but dead ends. Dozens of faint, black and gold threads had been cleanly sliced all around his body, sealed tight with thin bands of glowing gold. This was not a regular disease or wound. Henry's body was like a house on fire, but with every single exit nailed completely shut. My mouth moved before my survival instinct could even stop me, blurting out that you cannot heal a man whose next beginning was stolen. The entire corridor whipped around to stare at me. Real subtle, Dorian, 10 out of 10. Elias pushed himself up, totally offended and bleeding. He demanded to know who spoke. I raised my hand, and Blake muttered it was the basement heretic. Reeves's eyes sharpened as he ordered my removal. Graham just stared at me, looking like a rich man deciding whether to buy something or destroy it. He told me I had 10 seconds. Sienna's eyes dropped straight to the black gold marks glowing faintly through my shredded shirt. Reeves relented, telling Miss Ashford that this candidate was currently under review for a dangerous god conflict. And yet, Sienna said coldly, he is standing while your official healer is bleeding all over the floor. I stepped closer, completely ignoring Reeves's glare and Elias's loud outrage. That massive ceremony was all over the business news in Dorian's memories. I spoke up, reminding them of a public event 6 weeks ago. Ashford Holdings signed a Golden Dominion Prosperity restructuring contract in a public ceremony, complete with a very shiny, expensive Orion seal. Graham's face instantly shifted, but I pushed on before he could interrupt. Your shipping expansion completely failed. Your hospital supply bid collapsed, and the Veyron Group won those contracts. Good. Then I am not crazy, just annoying. But check this out, the coin in my chest rang, showing me a pulsing gold band. The sickness is not the root cause, I explained. Something literally severed his next opening. The healing fails because it is trying to fix a body that has no remaining path left to survive. Elias glared at me like I had spat on his degrees, dismissing my words as theoretical nonsense that does not apply here. Mira hissed, asking if I was Dorian, noting that the dying man on the stretcher seemed to prove my theory wrong. My diplomatic career was officially dead. Graham stepped closer, his guards moving with him, demanding to know if I could prove it. I admitted I could not do it from here, but pointed down toward the lower chapel to offer I could expose the contract if we bring him to Aelia's well. Reeves immediately refused, which actually made Graham pause and think. Sienna caught that reaction too, looking from Reeves to the corridor, then back to Henry before asking what I needed. A public agreement. If I fail, you only lose a few minutes of his time. But if I succeed, you pay Aelia's restoration bond. You will protect her shrine from decommissioning and publicly declare that her miracle saved Henry Ashford's life. Reeves turned pale with rage, calling it extortion, but Sienna coldly corrected him, calling it a standard emergency negotiation. She noted their lawyers just did it prettier, pulling out a slim silver contract slate as her fingers flew across it. Watch how fast things move now. Graham watched Henry convulse, bark the order, and the blue slate lit up. Sienna added clauses faster than I could track, covering the restoration bond, public witnesses, medical consent, and protection from cathedral seizure. All of it conditional on visible improvement verified by their own witnesses. Shoving the slate into my hands, she warned that if he dies, this contract becomes my signed confession of fraud. Just the warm encouragement I needed, I thought, as I pressed my bloody thumb directly onto the contract. The moment my blood touched it, the coin mark rang so hard my vision blurred. This contract was a real opening. The stretcher descended into Aelia's chapel, surrounded by Ashford guards, cathedral security, one incredibly furious director, a bleeding healer, and enough tense onlookers to make this either a historic miracle or my very public execution. Aelia's well sat dry and silent in the center. I placed the glowing slate on the rim, pressing my hand over my chest. I called out to Aelia, demanding the truth hidden in this vow. Beneath my skin, the sealed wheel turned, my coin mark flared. Then another sealed symbol cracked a heavy ring made of tangled, interlocking lines. A voice rose from the well, older than law and colder than any threat. First vow witnessed, it spoke. The contract slate turned black. Sienna stumbled back, wondering what that was. Honestly, I wanted answers too. Then the voice spoke, hidden term detected. The blue contract projection shattered, exposing a second document underneath. A golden seal burned brightly right at the bottom. Orn Drake's symbol sat inside it, not on Henry's actual body, but tied to an older Golden Dominion agreement on his name. A thread ran from that seal into Henry's chest, then stretched away, completely invisible to our scanner. Elias whispered that this was no disease. The voice spoke again, future openings transferred, survival paths assigned away, contract audit incomplete. Graham looked like someone had ripped the air from his lungs. Sienna's calm finally cracked as she demanded to know who received them. The contract blurred, its gold seal resisting. Aelia's strained voice echoed from the well, she could open only one path. Suddenly, a freezing pressure wrapped tight around my faction mark. I knew the price before she even spoke. If this failed, my mark would shatter. Rank 4. Aelia, Maverin, my entire life could collapse. I would go back to rank 0, back to absolute silence. Or worse. I glanced at Henry, then at Reeve, who stared at the seal like a man watching his locked basement burn down. I made my choice. Slamming both hands against the well, I shouted for everyone to hear, I serve Aelia of the very first step. I offer this public vow, this exposed contract, and the beginning stolen from Henry. Now, open the path he was denied. The well exploded with power. Blinding black gold light erupted around the stretcher, and Henry's body arched violently. Those golden bands binding him snapped one by one, each break ringing out like a coin falling into deep water. Behind the well, the empty stone pedestal cracked. A strange shape manifested above it, a broken, faceless woman's silhouette, standing where nothing had stood before. The seal shrieked. Then, Henry inhaled. A deep, real breath, not a weak twitch. His eyes snapped open. Graham fell to his knees beside the stretcher, letting out a ragged sob. Looking toward the dry well, he declared in a hoarse but clear voice, the Ashford family recognizes this miracle. Aelia's shrine is now under our protection. Sienna gasped, covering her mouth, but she couldn't tear her eyes away. Elias Monroe stared at me like I had just slaughtered his entire profession, then dragged his patient back from the dead. And look at this. The scanner goes absolutely wild, recalculating divinity ranks. Reeve yells to shut it down. Too late. The display flared with light, turning the entire chapel black gold. Divinity rank updated, rank 5. A human ceiling of rank 5. The crowd went dead silent, but the system kept going. Warning. Authority detected. First seal fractured. Rank 6 pathway detected. The faceless woman lifted her head. For a split second, a terrifying title flashed across the scanner, Mother of Beginning. Then, every light bulb in the chapel exploded. The chapel plunged into pitch black, as if the cathedral itself saw the words rank 6 and passed out. Total, heavy silence followed. That scanner was fried, every candle was dead, and even that smug marble glow from Orion upstairs completely vanished. Only darkness remained, broken glass showering down on stone as about 50 terrified witnesses literally forgot how to breathe. Then the backup lights kicked in, bathing the lower chapel in red. Henry Ashford was coughing violently, clearly alive enough to be pissed off. Graham held his father's shoulder with a tight grip, clearly terrified the old man might dissolve into thin air if he let go. Sienna guarded the stretcher, holding her contract slate high, her eyes sharp, blood drying on her sleeve. I collapsed to one knee beside Ali as well, both of my hands trembling violently. My chest burned as if someone had sliced my ribs open and poured black gold fire inside. Rank 5, the human limit. Crazy, right? I hit the human ceiling by committing medical heresy in a dark basement. Just another Tuesday. Nobody cheered at first. They just stared. Honestly, that was worse. Cheering means they understand and approve, but staring means their brains are struggling to decide if this was a miracle or a massive crime. Or maybe a public safety hazard. Then, the whispers began. Rank 5, a rank 6 path. Mother of what? Conflicts, a golden seal. People saw it. Then, Reeves' voice cut through the rising panic, ordering that absolutely nobody leaves this floor. That forced everyone to look. Malcolm Reeves stood under the red emergency lights, dust coating his suit, pure murder hiding behind a fake smile. His sharp eyes flicked from Henry to me. Then, he glared at the broken scanner above the door, and Reeve ordered his security to seize every unauthorized recording. They called this a dormant site event and potential divine contamination. I almost laughed. Seriously, divine contamination? That's the fancy name they're using now. You save a dying billionaire from a secret Golden Dominion seal, and suddenly you aren't some miracle worker. Nope. You're just basement mold with legs. Right then, a security guard marched toward a candidate holding up a phone. Sienna Ashford's voice stopped him cold. Touch even one witness record, she warned. And the Ashford Council files obstruction charges before sunrise. The guard froze instantly, and Reeve turned to face her. Reeve argued that the matter involved an unregistered divine manifestation and violated the one God rule. Sienna didn't even blink. She fired back. This involves a public contract, a failed licensed healer, a hidden seal on my grandfather's agreement, and a genuine miracle recognized by the entire Ashford family. Beside the stretcher, Graham's voice rasped out that the shrine was under their protection, along with the candidate. Candidate, that word felt absolutely ridiculous now. 5 minutes ago, I was just a rank 4 basement anomaly with a shredded shirt. Now the system suddenly labeled me rank 5, but honestly, if someone offered me a sandwich right now, I'd probably cry. Nearby, Elias Monroe slumped against the wall, clamping a bloody hand over his mouth. Faint white choir sigils flickered weakly around his fingers as he stared at Henry Ashford. Then he glanced my way just once. No mockery remained on his face, only pure, professional horror. After all, a healer hates nothing more than realizing the body was never the real battlefield. Mira crouched next to me and grabbed my arm, asking if I could stand up physically or emotionally. Dorian, no, she muttered, but help me up anyway. My legs nearly buckled while the coin mark chimed softly. Oren's contract mark sat even colder right beside it, feeling like a ring forged from law and terrible life choices. Beneath them both, Aelia's crescent glowed with a steady heat. 3 channels, 1 path. The scanner detected multiple divine signatures and totally panicked, which was pretty fair, honestly. Seriously, if I were some high-tech government scanner and some bleeding idiot suddenly brought 2 extra gods through a forgotten goddess, I'd scream too. Reeve marched right up to me, announcing that Dorian West was restricted to cathedral custody until they reviewed this whole mess. Sienna made her move first. Bypassing any useless threats, she simply hoisted the legal contract slate and angled it right at him. Their agreement granted immediate Ashford protection over this shrine, the recovered patient, and the performing divine agent pending official verification. Performing divine agent, I muttered. Sounds pretty expensive. Can I send myself an invoice? Mira pinched my arm as Sienna kept going, telling him to take this agreement to the iron bench if he doubted it. If you detain Dorian without due process, you'll have to explain why you locked up the only healer who successfully reversed my grandfather's collapse. Reeves' jaw instantly tightened. For one perfect second, the greedy guy who tried to price Aelia's life at $900,000 looked like he swallowed the invoice. Then his face smoothed over as he conceded. He accepted their temporary medical and legal protection. But that word temporary landed like a sharp knife placed gently on the table. Reeve glared directly at me, telling me to enjoy my miracle because by morning, the entire country would be demanding to know what I actually did. He simply turned and walked away. No theatrical threats or evil laughter, just a chilling, highly disciplined retreat. That actually scared me way more. Believe me, loud people just want attention, but quiet guys like Reeve leave to find a much bigger weapon. The Ashford guards quickly formed a wall around Henry, Mira, and me. The crowd was pushed back, but the damage was already done. People had recorded everything before Reeves' orders. The rank 5 announcement, the system error, the first seal, the rank 6 pathway, and that title flashing for less than a second. Mother of beginning. I saw it. Mira saw it. Even Sienna saw it. Reeve definitely saw it too, looking like he just opened a coffin and found his own boss inside. On the stretcher, Henry Ashford stirred. His eyes fluttered open, cloudy, but definitely alive. He turned toward the well, then toward me, whispering in a raspy voice that there was a door. Everyone near him froze. Graham leaned close, calling to his father, while Henry's fingers trembled against the blanket. He muttered about gold on it, being unable to open it or breathe. Then his eyes closed. Medics rushed in, their scanner lights staying solid green. Weak, but green. A real breath, a stable pulse. Alive. This sight really should have made me feel victorious. Instead, I felt the entire floor tilt beneath me. Aelia's voice touched the back of my mind, faint but clearer than before. She murmured that I opened what was denied. I swallowed, breaking something in the process. That first seal, right? Great. I am a huge fan of ominous nouns. Her presence flickered, feeling less like a dying ember and more like a flame behind cracked glass. Not broken, she whispered, fractured. An important difference, yes, comforting, not really. Before she could answer, the world above us started to move. It began right with the phones. A candidate near the stairs gasped that it was already online. Someone cursed. And just like that, the chapel became a chaotic rumor factory. Viral clips spread way faster than security could block them, including one of Henry waking. Another had Reeve screaming to kill the scanner, and a third showed my rank 5 screen. The captions were totally brain dead. Basement goddess hits rank 5, Orion curse exposed, multi-god heretic saves Ashford patriarch. That last headline annoyed me because it was actually catchy. By the time Ashford guards escorted me to a side room near the chapel, the Golden Dominion had already put out their initial statement. Sienna read it from her slate with a flat voice. They were deeply concerned about an unauthorized shrine incident at the cathedral. They blamed divine contamination and scanner instability, and a potential covenant violation, urging the public not to trust what they called manipulated fragments of online footage. I just sat on a stone bench wrapped in a blanket, blinking at her. Wow, was all I could say. They labeled me a manipulated fragment before I even got fed. Mira stood by the door, arms tightly crossed. Mira warned they are trying to spin my miracle as illegal before people believe it. I asked if they could, and Sienna said yes. Zero hesitation in her voice, which was incredibly comforting. She crouched down to eye level and told me to listen very closely. Being rank 5 does not make me safe, it just makes me valuable, terrifying, and legally inconvenient. Personally, I was hoping for rich and handsome. I have no church, no army, no legal team, no faction, and definitely no vault full of relics. No senior apostles or PR team either. Just one condemned shrine, a recovering goddess, 2 weird channels, and a massive public scandal. I looked over at Mira, her pep talks feel like a brutal tax audit. She just nodded, saying Sienna was absolutely right. Sienna stood up, promising her family would pay the bond and secure the lower chapel under our current contract. That will buy us some time, but it won't stop the Dominion from challenging Aelia's legitimacy or framing my power as pure corruption. I sat up and asked about Reeve. Sienna told me he had vanished from the cathedral 10 minutes ago. He handed over authority to higher administration. Translation: the local snake had slithered off to bring back even bigger snakes. Suddenly, a cold pulse ran through my chest. Aelia, she had gone completely silent during the legal chaos, but now those strange marks under my skin started to twist. The coin, the contract ring, Aelia's crescent, and other hidden symbols began spinning like locks, searching for their matching keys. A burning sensation scratched beneath my ribs as a door symbol woke up. I gripped the bench, feeling it slowly trying to open. Mira noticed instantly, calling my name as the room blurred. For one brief second, a strange, forgotten place flashed before my eyes. I saw a platform under a rusted roof, overgrown railway tracks, carved names, and a dark, empty well beneath the floorboards. A lonely road starting right where people left everything behind. Then the vision snapped away, leaving me gasping back in the room. Sienna's hand immediately drifted toward a hidden weapon at her hip as she demanded to know what I had just seen. I muttered about an old railway station, sensing something else. Suddenly, Aelia's voice echoed through the marks, sounding terrified for the first time as she warned me the first seal had cracked. When I asked who heard it, she whispered that it was the ones who buried her. Talk about a massive, terrifying upgrade in enemies. Just great! My door mark flared up again, actively pulling instead of just guiding. Aelia warned the second seal was active. Mira went pale, and Sienna sharply demanded to know seal of what. I couldn't answer because I had no clue. That was when the hallway outside fell dead silent. Talk about a major vibe shift, it went dead silent, the way a room does when a predator enters. The guards immediately took defensive stances as slow, unhurried footsteps echoed on the stone floor right outside. Aelia's voice became a faint whisper, saying the second seal was calling me. The footsteps stopped right outside. She whispered a warning about the gold, And then the door swung open as if waiting for someone incredibly wealthy. No knock, no warning, just a single click, and every single guard in the room instantly raised their weapons. A man in a charcoal coat stood there, a gold pin on his collar, looking like someone who never rushed because the world always moved out of his way first. He looked 35, maybe 50. These rank 5 powerhouses have that annoying, perfect polish where age is basically just a suggestion for poor people. His dark hair had a single silver streak at the temple. He wore black leather gloves, and his eyes were a pale, striking gold. They were naturally gold, which was worse than glowing. Aelia's mark turned freezing cold inside me, and Maverin's coins went silent. Oren's contract ring tightened like a noose, but the stranger just smiled at the weapons aimed at him. Please lower those before someone gets embarrassed. Sienna did not budge. Identify yourself, she demanded. Lucian Harrow, he replied. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. No thunder, no dramatic gusts. But everyone present with money, legal training, or survival instincts instantly realized the temperature had dropped. Even I recognized that name from the novel. Lucian Harrow, the veteran. A rank 5 apostle of the Golden Dominion and one of Orion Drake's highest living followers. The kind of monster who never showed up for disasters. He only appeared when the victims survived. I tried to stand a bit straighter. My knees protested immediately as Lucian stared, remarking that I looked completely terrible. Good, I muttered, joking that the camera usually added trauma. Beside me, Mira made a quiet sound, wanting to kick my ankle but fearing I would fall. Lucian stepped inside. The Ashford guard shifted, but not a single one actually blocked his path. That revealed everything. A rank 5 level did not mean equality, it meant immense capacity. He had capacity plus massive wealth, relics, training, and enough swagger to treat elite guards like cheap living room decor. Sienna's voice remained sharp, insisting Dorian West was under Ashford protection. Lucian nodded in a purely professional, legal manner, lifting one gloved hand, a flat golden seal unfurled in midair, shining like a document of pure sunlight. I am not here to execute your miracle worker, Miss Ashford. My goal was preventing a divine infection from establishing a church, not attacking my physical body. He attacked their permission to believe me. Suddenly, the seal projected a formal notice and emergency petition for divine legitimacy review. The respondent was Dorian West, claimed patron Aelia of the First Step, alleging unlawful remnant worship. This meant a covenant violation, fraudulent divinity escalation, and corrupted secondary channels. Unlawful shrine restoration. I stared at the phrase fraudulent divinity escalation. Sounds like cheating with extra incense, I remarked. Lucian smiled politely, saying humor is normal for frightened candidates. Good, I said. Glad I was special. He ignored me, announcing the Iron Bench's emergency jurisdiction. The wall behind him darkened as an iron-gray symbol of a balanced scale appeared. Hing-Kei. It had no face, only the presence of cold law pressing into the room like a giant hand. A neutral voice declared the emergency petition acknowledged, officially opening this divine legitimacy hearing. My stomach dropped. When even Sienna starts swearing under her breath, you know the situation is getting dangerously serious. Lucian declared that until the hearing concluded, Aelia's shrine was restricted, and Dorian West remained under strict observation. Any attempt to remove sealed evidence from here is obstruction. I quickly looked at Sienna, asking if he could do that. Her tight jaw gave me a silent yes. We had reached divine court in minutes. At this rate, I would be warring with a moon by breakfast. The symbol pulsed. The system listed potential penalties, including shrine condemnation, mark severance, and losing all divine legal protection. Becoming a divine criminal made my mouth go dry. Under my skin, Aelia's crescent mark began to twitch. Not fear, but old pain, Lucian noticed, softening his voice, which only made him creepier. You have moved too quickly, Mr. West. A forgotten nursery goddess suddenly answering after decades of silence? A broke candidate jumping straight to rank 5, plus a hidden title flashing on a scanner raises massive red flags. Surely even you can see why the law has to ask questions. I fired back, asking why Henry Ashford had a golden dominion seal in his chest. Watch how the room suddenly freezes. Sienna's eyes immediately shot to me. Lucian's polite smile never wavered as he called it a tragic misunderstanding. He blamed my inexperience, but then Graham Ashford's heavy voice boomed from the doorway. Looking rough and dangerous, he left Henry with the medics, holding himself together with sheer rage and expensive tailoring. Graham growled that his father was dying, but Lucian just bowed, saying he was pleased Henry was recovering. Told to spare the pleasantries, Lucian looked amused and snapped his fingers at me. A second document unfurled in the air, old parchment with a gold border. At the bottom was a seal of a scratched footprint. Suddenly, Aelia's mark spasmed, sending a burst of pain through my ribs, so intense I nearly collapsed. Mira grabbed me, Panicked. Aelia's voice spoke inside my head, broken and terrified. Just one word of pure denial. Watching me closely, Lucian declared this was the official surrender record of Aelia of the first step. Silence filled the room again. Sienna stepped closer. You claim Aelia surrendered her authority, but Lucian just smirked. The official records claim it, not him. The bench admitted the document as preliminary evidence. My chest burned, the door mark clawing like a trapped beast. Aelia's presence flickered inside me, bringing sheer agony. I forced my eyes onto the page instead of looking at Lucian. Looking at Lucian would only show me his smug confidence, but searching the record might help me spot the lie. The handwriting looked ancient and the seal even older, but the phrasing felt way too clean and modern. The insulting phrase, minor developmental divinity, appeared on the third line, pure registry language. It was the same category the app used when Trent mocked her. Even worse, the footprint seal was wrong. It sat over the gold line, meaning someone stamped Aelia's symbol after the page had already been scarred. I remembered her real chapel ledger, messy ink, crooked spelling, and human touches that came from genuine devotion. This fake document looked like history rewritten by a lawyer, dressed up to lie politely. I pointed at the seal. That stamp is fake, I declared. Lucian tilted his head, asking if it was. The footprint came after the gold. Old ledger marks do not layer that way, and minor developmental divinity is purely modern classification language. They wanted me to believe an ancient record used cathedral app lingo. Mira gasped while Sienna stepped forward immediately. Sienna urged the bench to note our objection. The metallic voice complied. Challenging evidence required a certified counter-record. The cold court did not care that I felt the lie, or that my goddess was twisting in pain. None of my feelings were admissible. Lucian offered a sickeningly gentle smile. Suspicion is not proof, Mr. West, he said calmly, adding that my rank did not make my opinion fact. I hated him. And then, things took a terrifying turn. He demanded I tell the bench how I carried my channels. What did he mean? Lucian's gold eyes locked onto the scanner residue and the half-awake symbols on my skin. He questioned the coin, the contract ring, and the door. Was I harboring independent gods or stolen divine fragments? Or had I built an unauthorized root covenant beneath Aelia's broken shrine? That term made my heart stop. Those words struck my mark like a physical hammer. Aelia went dead silent. Both Lucian and Sienna noticed instantly. I did too. I had no idea what a root covenant was, but Lucian did, and that was a massive problem. I carry only one patron, I stated carefully. Aelia of the first step. Anything else answers only through her. Lucian's eyes sharpened, calling it unproven, while the iron symbol pulsed again. They demanded proof of divine continuity, or I would face supervised mark examination. Mira whispered to ask what that meant. Sienna explained they would legally cut into my faction mark. Terror washed over me. Cutting into my mark meant hurting Aelia. They would destroy the only path keeping her alive. Aelia's strained voice suddenly whispered a single word: railway. The door symbol burned so intensely that I gripped my chest. For a second, the courtroom vanished completely. I saw rusty tracks, a sealed platform, carved names, and a ticket booth covered in shattered glass. Underneath lay a dark well breathing through the floorboards. I gasped in shock, and Sienna quickly stepped in front of me to hide my reaction. Sienna demanded medical recovery time, but Lucian snapped back that I needed proof. She begged for time to retrieve it. Lucian sneered, warning that if I left this place, Ashford security would keep me closely escorted under court notice. The iron symbol stayed silent for 3 agonizing seconds before granting us a 24-hour extension. We could retrieve our counter-evidence under escort, but failing to return meant a warrant for my goddess's arrest. Just 24 hours to find a phantom station and prove my goddess never surrendered her existence, and to stop Lucian Harrow from legally dissecting my very soul. I just nodded to avoid showing weakness. Lucian folded the golden document away, smugly muttering that it was good. Go run toward your little railway ghost, he whispered, leaning in close so only I could hear. He sneered that every buried god leaves a grave, Dorian West, and he was eager to see what mine remembered. Then he stepped back, smooth as a sheathed blade. The glowing iron symbol faded from the brick wall, but the mark under my ribs pulsed fiercely. But get this time, the vision came with clear coordinates. The abandoned West Side Rail District. Under Platform B, a dark entity opened its eye. Mavrin's coin rang with a warning because Lucian was still smiling. And when we set off for that cursed railway shrine, his gold would surely follow. 24 hours sounds pretty generous, until a veteran rank 5 smiles like he just handed you your own noose. Before sunrise, we cleared the cathedral. Under Ashford escort and heavy legal pressure, my very soul was itching. I was wrapped in a borrowed coat with absolute rags underneath. Apparently reaching rank 5 does not include free clothes. Talk about awful customer service. Sienna worked up front in the armored car, scanning 3 distinct legal feeds. Meanwhile, Mira sat right beside me with a first aid kit, glaring whenever I touched the bandage on my thumb. Stop touching it, she snaps. It keeps bleeding in a suspiciously plot-relevant way. That is not a real medical category, so just give it time. Above Sienna, a strange iron orb hovered. It was a silent court witness. Just recording. Tailing us because those judges wanted cold proof, not excuses. If we failed to bring back solid counter-evidence, Lucian would immediately demand a full mark examination. Just thinking about that phrase made my chest incredibly tight. An examination meant a blade straight through the faction, and right through me. Behind us, 2 sleek black cars trailed. 6 blocks. Still there. Sienna checked her mirror. Golden Dominion surveillance. Are they even allowed to tail us? Sure, public roads are free game. Lovely. Gotta love when hitmen respect traffic laws. You can tell the city completely forgot this place. The West Side Rail District was almost entirely abandoned. Ruined warehouses stood with shattered windows, while rusted tracks cut through thick weeds. A bent chain-link fence sagged around a decaying station. No holy banners, no fancy seals. Absolutely zero gold. Just pure rust, dead silence, and a rotting roof. My hidden doormark burned under my ribs. Platform B. The second my foot stepped past that fence, Aelia whispered in my mind. People definitely escaped from here, I guessed, looking at the old tracks. Not only trains, her voice sounded incredibly distant and fractured, but there was this sudden wave of absolute grief underneath. The Ashford escorts quickly sliced the lock and went in first. Sienna followed closely, holding that floating court orb. Mira hovered right near me, ready to look severely disappointed if I fainted before she caught me. Indoors, the air smelled heavily of damp rot and old grease. Smashed wooden ticket booths, overturned benches, and crooked boards dangling precariously from the ceiling. Long ago, someone had painted over the far wall, but it was peeling now, revealing desperate, hand-scratched writing underneath. Hundreds of names were carved there, violently scraped into the stone by keys, pocket knives, and probably bare fingernails. First journey west. First day of freedom. First train after the war. First road without my husband. First crossing with my baby. Mira gently touches a name. These are prayers. Sienna. To who? My mark pulses painfully. I wipe thick grime off an old wooden beam, uncovering ancient letters to the mother who opened roads. The whole station feels like it is breathing. Deep inside my chest, Aelia lets out a quiet, painful whimper. I stare blankly at the carving. They did not call you Aelia. No, she whispers, and Mira softly mutters. Mother. That legal recording device hums, capturing the wall. Sienna looks up sharply. This might serve as solid proof, if we prove continuity. Continuity, I mutter. Nothing makes forbidden ancient worship look sexier than court paperwork. Suddenly, Maverin's coin rings with a sharp warning. Those black cars just stopped right outside. We had to move fast. Platform B was covered in thick, wild weeds. A faded yellow safety line still marks the platform edge. Beyond that line, rusted tracks vanish into a cave-in. My chest mark flares hot near the center of the platform. Right there, I point. An Ashford guard pries up a warped board. Freezing air escapes. Down there is a pitch-black staircase, because apparently every major god in this city was stashed underground like some shameful, embarrassing family furniture. I go first before my fragile courage can argue with my common sense. Deep beneath Platform B, we discover a hidden chamber with an illegal offering well. Unlike Aelia's first chapel, this isn't dry. It holds deep black water so completely still it resembles polished glass. Ancient, mossy offerings litter the stone rim like bent tickets, boot nails, an old soldier's button, a split wedding band, and a child's colorful ribbon wrapped around a rusted key. Carved directly into the stone above the well is a doorway leading into a road. My knees almost buckle. Look at this. Sienna positions the recording device right over me as I uncover a fragile, damp-rotted ticket from the station ledger. A one-way ticket with absolutely no destination printed, just an empty blank line where their future belonged. That feels a bit too personal. I place it down, adding the scraped names, a single nail, and my own fresh blood, because obviously, we have to do that again. Honestly, my poor thumb really needs a union. I offer the first departures remembered here. I speak aloud those who fled, because staying meant death, the roads they prayed for, and every threshold they survived. Outside, the dark water rippled. Metal shrieked loudly. An Ashburg guard screams contact as gold light cuts through the floorboards. Sienna instantly draws her weapon. Mira grabs a loose iron pipe. Apparently candlesticks were just gateway weapons for her. The well speaks back with a voice totally unlike Aelia, Min, or Oren. It sounds like a massive door cracking open during a violent storm. A voice demands who stands at the border. I step up Dorian West, follower of Aelia, of the first step. The room shakes. Total silence. Then, a furious whisper, Aelia. That little name still bleeds. Aelia whispers a name, Adrian. Dark water shoots up in a thin line, striking the door mark under my ribs. Visions of stations, bridges, and gates flash by every single boundary line, where one side ends and another begins. Sudden pain folds me double. A new mark opens inside Aelia's crescent. Edward answers the ancient road, the voice echoes. The threshold step is yours, little walker, but only use it at a genuine boundary. Try it in thin air and you will find out why walls love eating fools. Everyone is so supportive, I wheeze as the ceiling cracks. Watch this glowing golden cords punch through the ceiling, wrapping around the chamber like wire. Masked men drop down right after them, their sleeves bearing golden dominion scales. An Ashford guard opens fire. A gold shield blocks the shot, throwing him into the wall. Sienna grabs my arm, asking if I can move us. Bro, I literally got this power 12 seconds ago. Can I move us? Man, I hate logical questions. I reach for the fresh door mark and target the nearest solid wall. The mark does nothing. Edenward's voice snaps in my head. Threshold. You idiot. Extremely helpful, thanks. The masked squad advances. One swings a gold-edged baton at Mira, but she ducks, shatters his knee with her pipe, and looks shocked when he starts screaming. Note to self, never annoy her without witnesses around. The platform edge is the actual boundary. I grab Mira with one hand, Sienna with the other, and stumble toward the yellow line by the old rails. An enemy lunges at my back, but Maverin's coin rings in my ears, making me drop a split second early. The baton whistles through empty air where my spine just was. The yellow line glows black gold under my boot. First crossing, I whisper. The universe tears open sideways. For one terrifying second, I am not crossing physical space. I am stepping through the literal concept of departure. Suddenly, we tumble face first into a dusty, boarded-up service corridor, right behind the old waiting room. I smash face first onto the ground. No dignity. Mira somehow lands gracefully on one knee. Sienna lands on her feet because rich heirs even get fall training, apparently. The metal recording orb zips right behind us, capturing everything. Shouts echo from behind the wall. Sienna warns they will discover this corridor soon, meaning we absolutely have to secure the evidence first. The pathway ends at a collapsed mural. Most of it is plastered over, but my dimensional step has shaken loose a decaying wooden panel. Beneath the wood lies vibrant paint, incredibly ancient pigment. Not church gold or modern acrylics, but deep, forgotten shades. Bold reds, whites, and dark metallic golds surround a faceless woman, standing right where a single road splits into endless paths. Surrounding her are tinier drawings, a tumbling coin, a ring of vows, and a bizarre door painted with watching eyes. Other symbols remain buried under heavy debris. I stop breathing as Mira whispers that this is Aelia herself, or at least, who she used to be before they reduced her to safe nursery rhymes. Near the bottom, a golden figure is gouged out. Someone aggressively gouged the face and title. But look at this, the remaining symbol is impossible to miss. A golden scale, a coin, a book of contracts, Orion Drake. Sienna thrusts the orb closer, shocked to see him in the painting. I wipe the dust away with my sleeve, letting more of the hidden image appear. Orion was not standing beside or above her. He is kneeling directly beneath her feet, head bowed low, hands raised like a loyal servant accepting a task. Mira goes completely silent. Sienna stops breathing. Suddenly, loud noise echoes from beyond the corridor wall. The masked agents begin smashing through. I stare at the ancient art, finally realizing why Lucian let me escape to this place. Because this train station does not just prove Aelia existed, it proves Orion once knelt to her. The Golden Order was never first. It actually served what came before. The masked soldiers do not break through the wall like cold, calculated assassins. They strike like desperate men trying to murder evidence before that evidence can learn how to scream. A gold-tipped baton punches through the decaying wood right beside Orion's kneeling image, tearing a chunk of priceless, ancient paint away. Sienna curse. Mira clutches the recording orb like a baby with legal authority. I just watch with the absolute peace of a guy whose only defense strategy is getting beat up. Move. Sienna commands. Sienna snaps. I tell her I am pretty attached to this historic wall. Fine, Dorian, she sighs. Hate culture, understood. Behind us, a single boarded-up maintenance door sat half-rotten and chained shut. A real doorway. A real threshold. Finally, this place was useful. I gripped the burning brand under my ribs. Eden's power flared, clicking like a hinge inside my bones, just as a masked agent smashed through the wood, gold shield glowing. He lunged straight for our floating iron orb, completely ignoring me. That told me everything. They did not care about fighting. They just wanted to destroy the evidence. Maverin's coin rang out, and I threw myself backward through the broken door frame, dragging Mira and Sienna along. I whispered threshold. Instantly, the chain door broke open into somewhere impossible. We fell through freezing air, crashing hard onto the floor of a pitch-black archive room behind the mural. Narrow, crowded. Old wooden shelves mixed with brand new metal. It was a terrible sign. Burying ancient secrets was bad enough, but current records meant the conspiracy was still active. Our floating iron orb bobbed nearby, casting its dim gray light across rows of boxes, sealed documents, and dusty plaques, revealing massive metal cabinets tagged with Golden Dominion inventory stickers. Sienna stared, whispering that these files were strictly current. Of course they are, I muttered, because nothing screams clean like hiding active documents inside a haunted transit tunnel. Mira jammed an iron pipe through the handles just as the pursuers hit the door, warping the frame instantly. "That won't hold long," she warned. "Perfect," I replied. I was getting bored anyway, as Sienna forced open a cabinet. Thick paper folders inside bore bright, polished gold seals. Labels read Westward Outreach, Rank 0 Candidate Assistance, Blessing Access Initiative. Everything sounded incredibly clean and generous. Perfect, gentle phrases, just what rich monsters use when dressing up their crimes. Sienna pulled one file into the orb's pale light, showing pictures of happy families posing near Golden Dominion banners. They promised free meals, counseling, and public blessing registrations to lure in vulnerable people from the poorest slums. Wait for it. When she flipped the page, everything turned dark. Cold columns listed candidate names, projected success rates, and harvest status. Dead silence fell as the door shuttered again. The locking pipe groaned. I stared at the horrifying terms on the page, my stomach instantly turning to ice. Beginning yield. This had nothing to do with charity or unanswered prayers. They were literally calculating a person's entire future before they even got to live it. Mira whispered, asking what it meant. I already dreaded the truth before she even spoke. Sienna grabbed another document. She muttered that they tracked everything, from a target's first scholarship to their business success, her voice growing colder by the second. Stolen potential was funneled directly to wealthy elites. Another heavy slam rocked the entrance. A masked voice outside barked to smash our recording unit. Mira stared at me, panicked. I knew we had to run, but my feet glued to the floor. Right there, in a premium folder far above the rest, was Henry Ashford's name. His file was a targeted transfer, marked as a high-value survival path reassignment. The contract linked him directly to their elite pool. A heavy seal resisted our orb's light, but the disgusting truth still bled through. Henry was just a premium victim, a cleaner, wealthier, deeply buried theft. If they could carve up an elite heir like Henry under a formal contract, what hope did poor Rank 0 street kids have? Inside my mind, Aelia's voice trembled, whispering that they steal the first road. Through a crack, I saw the mural. Dorian, kneeling before a faceless goddess. Beneath his peeling image, tiny hidden words emerged from the cracked paint, naming him the keeper of rewards after the road. Sienna's glowing orb illuminated the message. Mira read the words aloud, her voice trembling slightly. After the road. It read coin after crossing, gold after harvest, and prosperity after the path. There it lay, bare. Orion was never the actual source of their luck. He was merely the end result, the glittering payout people mistook for the source because glowing gold is excellent at seducing desperate fools. And yeah, I was definitely one of those idiots. I had nearly worshipped the guy myself. Suddenly, our barricade buckled. Sienna quickly stuffed files into our sealed evidence pouch, whispering that we finally had enough to win the hearing. No, Mira muttered, her voice freezing. It sounded deeply personal, which was far worse than terrified. She stood rigid before an open drawer, clutching a single crumpled sheet. I spotted the name on the page before she could speak. Evan Caldwell, her brother. It was a 5-year-old Dominion charity file, listing his public outcome as a failure with 0 blessing potential. Community assistance concluded. Underneath, a hidden line read, projected first acceptance, rank 2, technical blessing. Yield redirected to a municipal pool. Mira's face went completely white. My brother did everything right, she whispered. 2 years of studying, plus recommendations. Yet his offering failed, leaving him with absolutely no second chances. The room felt smaller, and I had no jokes left. Some things demand absolute silence. Anything else would just Bert's wearing a stupid hat. Mira folded the page with shaking hands, placing it under the orb. Record it, she commanded. It hummed. Evidence secured. Look out! The maintenance door explodes as gold light floods the room, and a masked agent charges straight for Mira. I moved before thinking. Truly the birthplace of my worst ideas. My eyes scanned shelves, door frames, cabinet gaps, and the edges of old wood flooring. Thresholds were everywhere, tiny, ugly, but incredibly real. I grabbed the shelf frame, pulled, and stepped sideways through a cabinet gap. I came out right beside him, slammed into him shoulder first, sending both of us crashing into a filing drawer. Heroic? Not really. Did it hurt him more than me? Barely, but I accepted the win. Sienna fired twice. Her shots slammed against gold shields, forcing the agents back. Mira swung her pipe with absolute fury, targeting the nearest man as if reclaiming her family's stolen future right now. I grabbed the evidence pouch and the iron orb. "We need out," Sienna yelled. I desperately searched for a safe threshold. Eden's mark burned as I spotted another doorway half hidden behind stacked crates. Through it lay fresh air, train tracks, and a platform. I reached for Mira, but she stayed put. Mira was frozen, staring at the filing cabinet. Hundreds of names were in there. All those lives turned into mere data and corporate jargon. I grabbed her wrist. "We take what we can now, and make them pay." Her eyes snapped to mine. For the first time, Mira looked genuinely, terrifyingly dangerous now. "Promise?" she asked. Honestly, that was a pretty terrible thing to ask a guy whose promises usually end in absolute disasters. I answered anyway. "Promise." Immediately, Oren's ring went cold. The powerful vow heard me. Perfect, zero pressure. We rushed the hidden door together. First crossing, I yelled, and the entire world folded. We burst onto the main platform in a shower of black and gold sparks, right as the last Ashford guard outside was forced down by a golden cord. The agents pursued, but our threshold slammed shut before they reached us. For one beautiful second, I thought we escaped. But get this, every exit of the station suddenly turned solid gold. The dark tunnel, the fences, the broken ticket doors, and even the train gaps all glowed with perfect gold light. The masked agents hadn't done this. It was way too clean, too completely flawless. A slow clap echoed as Lucian Harrow stepped out from behind an old signal post. His spotless coat was untouched by dust, pale gold eyes locking on our evidence pouch. "Good job," he said. "You found the archive." Sienna immediately raised her weapon, warning him that the Iron Bench recording was protected evidence. Lucian just glanced at it. "I have no plans to destroy it," he said. That was the worst possible answer. "You knew this was here." "Parts of it," Lucian admitted, looking at the broken station around us with a look resembling nostalgia. Mira stepped forward, her voice shaking with absolute fury. "You stole everything from my brother." Lucian looked at her, his smile completely vanishing. "No, Miss Caldwell, your brother carried a beginning he couldn't convert. The Dominion reassigned his power to a pool, creating massive prosperity for thousands." Mira's pipe shook. "You ruined him." Lucian's gaze shifted from her to me. "This is why the war stopped being about mere documents. You call it theft because you believe beginnings belong to the person born with them." Lucian sealed every exit with solid gold. "That was when I learned the difference between reaching rank 5 and trying to survive a comfortable murderer. Those gold lines didn't just block the doors, they completely owned them. The tunnel mouth, the fence gate, the shattered ticket booths, and even the train gaps all glowed with perfect gold light. Every threshold I could have used now had a golden leash wrapped around its throat." Lucian stood there spotless and calm, hands folded as if supervising a highly disappointing school field trip. "You call this theft," he repeated calmly, "because you still believe every beginning belongs to the person born with it." Mira's grip tightened. She wanted to swing. Honestly, same here. But my chest was already screaming from Aelia. Mavrin, Oren, and Eden, all tearing me apart in different directions. And Lucian looked like he had slept 8 hours, eaten breakfast, and scheduled my public humiliation between meetings. Sienna lifted the pouch. The Iron Bench orb hovered beside her, casting a gray light against golden seals. She warned him this evidence was under court witness protection. Lucian just glanced at the orb, ready to show us the difference between law and real power. He barely twitched one finger. The platform shifted. No cracking. No explosion. Just a silent, terrifying shift. The rotted wooden board under my right foot dipped half an inch just as I took a step. My ankle immediately rolled. Sharp pain shot straight up my leg, and Lucian crossed 30 feet before I could even find my balance. Mavrin's coin screamed inside my chest. I ducked. Lucian's gloved hand swept right over my head, carving a sharp golden line through the air where my neck had been a second ago. No weapons, just his bare hands. Gilded slavery at its finest, absolutely adorable. I grabbed the yellow line on the platform, trying to threshold step sideways. The line flashed. Locked. Lucian's knee slammed into my ribs. The world went white. I crashed into a rusted iron bench, hard enough to snap the metal in half. The evidence pouch skidded away. Mira lunged to grab the pouch, but a glowing golden cord snapped around her ankle, violently dragging her down as Sienna fired 3 desperate shots. Lucian did not even bother to look. Each bullet bent away by a few inches, burying itself in the rotting wood behind him. Honestly, that was way more terrifying than a shield. A shield is just defense. This was timing itself turning against us. Lucian calmly walked over. He told me rank only measures capacity, not true mastery. I coughed up blood, desperately pushing onto one elbow. I wheezed that he practiced that in a mirror. He said he tells everyone that. When I asked if they all hated him, he just said the living ones learned. Meanwhile, the golden cord dragged Mira toward the track edge. She dug her pipe into the wood, teeth clenched, refusing to scream. Sienna dove straight for the evidence pouch, but the gold seal around the entire station pulsed, causing the iron bench orb to flicker. The orb drone that transmission was obstructed. Lucian looked pretty pleased, declaring the station under Dominion containment. He warned that nothing leaves until he decides the law. Suddenly, Oren's ring went ice cold as a line of invisible law unfolded over the platform. It was not some legal document, it looked more like the bare skeleton of a hostile claim. I only saw it for a split second. Old railway property. Abandoned crossing. Emergency lockdown. Fake authority claimed under Orion's stewardship. The same old lie, just wearing a different suit. He is using the surrender records to steal this place. I gasped, and Sienna immediately looked at me, asking if I could break it. I told her I was open to ideas from my inner gods. Oren's voice cut in like a knife slicing a contract. He warned that a counterclaim requires witnesses. Lucian tilted his head, hearing enough to realize I had noticed something. Then, without warning, he ground his boot down on my wrist. Instant, humiliating pain. Bones ground against wood. My fingers spasmed open. The black gold marks beneath my skin flashed as Lucian's energy pressed down. Aelia's crescent flickered, and for one horrible second, her voice faded. Lucian leaned down, saying this was why mark examination was necessary. He sneered that I was carrying a structure I could never understand. I tried to choke out a clever comeback. I just said his shoe was committed. He ground his heel harder. The crescent cracked with a sharp snap only I could hear, and Aelia gasped inside my soul. Something dark opened up in my chest. Not power, just cold, pure fear. If he shattered this mark, Aelia would not die a clean death. She would just slip into silence. All those names, those stolen beginnings, would just end up as dusty files in some Dominion cabinet. I refused that dark future. Maverin's coin rang once. Its signal pointed past Lucian, straight to the evidence pouch, to Mira, and to those witnesses. I stopped struggling and reached for the promise Oren had found in the records room. We take what we can actually carry, and then we make them answer for the rest. I whispered to Oren to call the vow. The contract ring burned pitch black, and Mira's file pages exploded out of the pouch like a sudden wind. Evan Caldwell's name flared in a gray light from the iron orb. Then another file burst open, and then another. Hundreds of stolen names projected across the entire platform. Rank 0 candidates, failed offerings, harvested souls, and redirected power pools. Mira looked up from the edge with blazing eyes. Sienna understood the plan first. She grabbed the orb, screaming for the iron bench to recognize all named parties as harmed witnesses in a contested divine theft. The orb stuttered under the heavy gold interference. Lucian's expression finally sharpened. He warned her to be careful, but Sienna's smile was all teeth. Careful is just what people say when they fear the system actually works. Underneath Platform B, the ancient railway well finally responds. Pitch black water surges through the floorboards, rising like dark ink and filling every old groove. Those names carved deep into the wooden beams begin to glow. Lost travelers. Names of the victims. Everyday people who just wanted a chance, whose bright futures were cruelly stolen before they could even start. Aelia whispers they do not need to kneel, they are witnesses, not followers. Slamming my hand down, I yell out, I call back every beginning stolen here. My voice shakes, but it absolutely carries. Every first chance, first shop, first recovery, and every single innocent life that was twisted just to build up someone else's sick wealth. Lucian raises his hand. Heavy gold pressure slams down, blurring my vision as floorboards splinter around me. My chest mark burns like a hot brand, yet the names keep glowing as quiet voices begin rising from the station. Almost inhuman, quiet echoes rise. A boy whispering about studying, a woman crying she saved every single penny. A mechanic begging to know why his prayers were never answered. Evan Caldwell's name flares so brightly that Mira gasps, covering her mouth to hide a sob. Even Lucian's gold barrier starts to waver. Against a monster like him, even a tiny crack feels like a miracle. Eden, I gasp out. Wait, look closely right there. Lucian's golden seal still holds tight, but the gap between the old floor and his new barrier is totally exposed. A tiny, real opening the threshold between truth and lies. I push through it, and the world suddenly spins sideways. I did not escape. Instead, I crashed down right behind Lucian, shoulder screaming in pain. But I managed to grab the evidence and kick it to Sienna. Mira swings her pipe. She is not aiming at Lucian, she shatters the golden binding on her ankle instead. Sienna catches the evidence, thrusting it into the orb's gray light. It confirms the witness threshold, and Lucian finally turns around. He moves dangerously fast, striking my chest with just 2 fingers. My faction mark almost splits in half as Aelia screams out. Dark golden energy explodes from my chest. The coin, the ring, and the door spin frantically, trying to hold my fractured soul together. Falling to my knees, I see Lucian standing over me. His calm composure is finally completely gone. Well, not completely. Ruthless guys like him pay to have feelings removed, but the edges are cracking. He says I'm wasting power on nobodies who never became anything. I look up through dust and blood. No, I say. You stole their chance to try. I snap as Aelia's furious presence surges within me. The ancient offering well beneath us roars. Above the platform, the faceless woman from the mural manifests shattered, incomplete, but suddenly massive and terrifying. Floating around her, the golden coin, the vow ring, and the heavy door ignite in dark flames. The entire station trembles as the gold seals blocking the exits begin to crack like spiderwebs. Beneath the platform, the second seal rises a circle of locked symbols hidden in the dark water and rusted tracks. The seal does not shatter completely, but it cracks wide enough for a piercing line of light to spill out. Our faceless woman raises her head, revealing 2 pitch-black voids where her eyes should be. The recording orb shrieks with static, registering a partial seal fracture. Lucian takes a cautious step back, still undefeated. Defeating a monster like Lucian was never going to be that easy. He is just backing away to recalculate his next move. But look at this. A glowing line of text suddenly projects from the cracked seal. Beware the child of stolen gold. Instantly, every voice falls dead silent, as Mira and Sienna freeze in pure shock. Even Lucian loses his smug smile. Clutching my burning chest, I realize that warning is not actually talking about him. It is warning us about someone else entirely, hanging over the platform like a dark promise. Beware the child of stolen gold. Absolutely nobody moves. Mira, Sienna, even the wounded Ashford guards and Lucian Harrow himself completely freeze up. And when the main villain gets spooked too, that usually means we are dealing with something way above our pay grade. I just stay on my knees, clutching my chest to keep my faction mark from splitting in half. My body is completely broken. Honestly, my pride completely abandoned me during the fight and is hiding under a bench. Lucian shifts his golden gaze from the glowing text to the iron bench orb, which is barely clinging to life. Its flickering gray light still records everything: the cracked second seal, those glowing victim names, and the witness threshold. And of course, Lucian explaining that stealing lives was just advanced charity with better accounting. Sienna notices too. Shaking, she lifts the pouch and tells the iron bench to confirm that this recording is live. The orb sparked, and for one terrifying second, I thought it was dead. Then a massive gray circle split open above us, heavy and flat like a courtroom door made of storm clouds. Live recording confirmed. The booming metallic voice echoed out: witness threshold recognized. Victims of the prosperity dry up acknowledged. Golden Dominion containment claim initiated. Containment claim contested. Lucian did not panic. Men like him never show fear in public. They just adjust their posture and recalculate their odds. But those glowing gold lines tightened around the station way too fast. He was absolutely terrified, though not of me. Let's be real, I was one hard cough away from becoming station decoration. No, he was terrified of the truth surviving. Mira slowly dragged herself up, her leg badly bruised from that golden cord. Evan Caldwell's glowing file burned near her shoulder. My brother's name is in that record, she rasped out. Say it again, tell this court it was efficient. Lucian stared at her, completely silent for the first time. That silence was better than any insult. And look, Sienna steps up to finish it. The respondent demands immediate verification of the recovered archive and the actual standing of our witnesses. I stared at her. She made desperate pleading sound expensive. Shut up and keep bleeding dramatically, she snapped. It actually helps. Fair enough. I was basically just evidence with a pulse. The heavy orb turned toward the dark well. Verification requires complete witness alignment. Lucian raised his hand. Bright gold energy pooled at his fingertips, sharper than ever. If you force this, he warned, you will shatter this entire nation. I hacked up some blood and smiled. My survival instincts were long gone. Buddy, you built an empire out of stolen futures. I think that rupture is pretty well established. Lucian's eyes hardened, launching his gold blast straight at the orb. Maverin's coin rang so loudly my teeth literally ached. I scrambled forward, looking less like a hero and more like a desperate, cornered animal. My hand slammed the cracked platform where dark, pulsing water surged right beneath the floorboards. And I shoved every ounce of energy I had left into that raw boundary. Aelia's first path, Mavrin's opening, Oren's claim. Eden's threshold. The gold beam blasted right through where the orb had been, but it was no longer just floating above us. Suddenly, it existed in every single doorway that had ever witnessed these stolen lives. The station gates, the platform edge, the service entrance, the dusty file drawers, the old well, and every yellow line where broken travelers had prayed for survival. The gold blast sliced empty air. The heavy orb reappeared right above the old well, glowing far brighter now. Eden's voice laughed inside my bones, calling my move sloppy. Everyone is a critic, I wheezed. The old, carved traveler names flared with black and gold light along the beams. Then the stolen souls answered, not as ghosts, but as witnesses. Evan Caldwell, Henry Ashford, Marbel Torres, Jonah Pike. Hundreds from the files, and thousands more from the glowing pools. Real people who never knew what had been stolen from them, their futures harvested before they could even learn to hate the thief. Mira pressed her bloody hand over her brother's name, crying out that she witnessed. Sienna lifted the evidence pouch Ashford Council witnesses. A wounded guard dragged himself up, pressing his palm to a glowing carved name on a nearby post. Eyewitness. Above us, the iron circle widened. There was no physical crowd, but you could easily feel the weight of those souls. The heavy presence of those unseen names crushed the air until Lucian's golden seals began to splinter. Recovered worship established, the voice declared. Historical continuity established. Victim witness standing is officially recognized. Harvest records entered. Lucian's face hardened as Sienna snapped that provisional standing was more than enough to stop our immediate execution. The platform shook violently as the faceless woman above slowly lifted her head. Her eyes were just empty, dark outlines, but she was looking now, really looking. Aelia's voice echoed through the well, through me, and through the names. I was still holding on. The second seal beneath the platform began to turn, fighting back like a heavily rusted lock. Golden cracks tried to weld it shut while black water bubbled up. The old rails shrieked as if the station remembered every departure at once. I dragged myself forward, pulling one useless wrist behind me. What do you need? Aelia answered my call, weaker than I had hoped but stronger than she had ever been. Recognition. I let out a breathless, wheezing laugh. The one thing I am actually good at causing. I forced my head up toward the glowing circle. Those stolen names, Mira, Sienna, the beaten guards, Lucian, and the dark well listening right beneath our feet. I recognize Aelia of the first step, I yelled. She is no failed experiment, and she was never just a broken footnote in Oren's golden ledger. The air grew heavy, and Lucian stepped forward. Dorian sounded like he wanted me to stop for the very first time, so obviously, I kept pushing forward. I recognized her, the mother who opens roads. The first path before any reward, the beginning before gold. Suddenly, the station cracked open with a dark, golden light. The second seal shattered. It didn't explode, but snapped like a broken lock, finally admitting it had lost the entire argument. Golden containment lines snapped one by one. The exit gate burst open. The tunnel mouth went pitch black. The service door slammed wide open as every trap finally took a breath of freedom. Lucian stumbled back again, and this time, everyone saw it. The iron bench voice rang across platform B, confirming the second seal had fractured. The iron bench voice continued. Immediate mark examination is suspended. Dominion custody claim at this site is denied pending a full hearing, with all railway archive evidence preserved under iron bench seal. Above the well, the faceless woman's silhouette sharpened. Her dark, ancient eyes opened wide, but the space where her true name belonged remained completely blank. A wound made of missing letters. Then, a system display suddenly burned right across the air. Rank 6 pathway incomplete. Requirement 3 seals fractured. Current seals fractured too. 2 divinity rank 5 maintained. I just stared at it, absolutely wheezing. I really love being told I didn't level up after almost getting premium murdered. Mira choked out a sound that might have been a laugh, or maybe a sob. Sienna didn't laugh. She stared directly at Lucian and spoke in an ice-cold voice. She asked if the Golden Dominion would dare continue its execution attempt in front of the iron bench. Lucian looked from the cracked seal to the orb, and finally to me. For a second, the veteran rank 5 apostle of the Golden Dominion looked almost annoyed, not defeated, just highly annoyed. Which was terrifying in its own way. He told me I hadn't won, as I dragged myself up to sit against a broken bench. I noticed. Winning usually hurts less. Lucian adjusted his glove, telling me I only bought recognition. You bought a delay, and you bought witnesses, his eyes locking onto mine, but you also rang bells you don't understand. Golden light erupted behind him, forming a clean door where nothing had been. Inside my mark, Eden hissed that it was a stolen threshold. Lucian stepped backward into the portal, sneering to enjoy my little court, warning that the Dominion would answer. The golden door snapped shut, letting the station exhale. For a brief second, we both thought the nightmare was over. Then Aelia's well turned a shade of pure, arrogant, expensive gold. Every mark under my skin recoiled instantly. Mira stumbled back, while Sienna raised her weapon at the well as if to shoot a reflection which honestly matched my mood perfectly. The iron bench orb buzzed, announcing an unauthorized national offering. Well, linkage detected. Suddenly, my stomach dropped as every single puddle of black water on the station floor became a mirror. The railway well, Aelia's chapel well miles away, and thousands of offering wells across the country linked up into one impossible broadcast. A strange voice filled the station. It wasn't Lucian, and it definitely wasn't human. It sounded warm as coin, smooth as a signed contract, and so massive that my bones wanted to kneel before my brain could tell them absolutely not. The god's voice boomed, addressing Oren Drake and the citizens, claiming a criminal distortion of fortune had finally been exposed. My mouth went dry as the golden water began showing a massive cathedral I had only ever read about in novels. We saw golden pillars, a massive offering well-shaped like a sunken crown, and priests in white and gold surrounding a circle of stolen light. Right at the center knelt a young man with dark hair, a clean profile, and a calm face. Carter Blaine. My lungs completely froze up. If you can believe it, that is the actual protagonist, destined to rise much later. He was supposed to face trials, rivals, and setbacks, the whole heroic buffet. Instead, he knelt as streams of light poured into him from every linked well. And that light wasn't simple gold, it was beginnings. I could see it clearly, because Aelia had taught me what theft looked like. First acceptances, first recoveries, first contracts, and first inventions. First escapes, first tiny impossible turns of fate, all stripped from countless innocent people and poured into his body like fuel. Aelia whispered in horror that the power was stolen. Right then, Carter's back arched. The golden well behind him screamed, and a system display flared above him. Golden vessel candidate, artificial divinity stabilization, rank ascension in progress. I tried to stand, but my legs failed. Mira looked at me, asking if I knew him. I quickly swallowed the wrong answer, that he was supposed to be our hero. Instead, I told her he was a candidate. Oren's voice boomed much louder now. Dorian, Westbearer of unlawful beginnings. Corrupter of divine succession. Enemy of rightful prosperity. The golden broadcast turned away from the nation, locking straight onto me, as Carter Blaine opened his eyes. His eyes flashed gold, but just for a second, he couldn't tell if the man staring back was Carter, Orion, or some terrifying nightmare trapped between them. The screen flashes. Divinity rank updated to rank 5. Classification. He is now a golden vessel candidate. Target, Dorian West. That third seal inside his mark slammed shut so incredibly hard he screamed. It locked tight instead of cracking. A black system alert burns through the gold. Oh, this is bad. Vessel awakened. Target, Dorian West. Third seal location locked.